discussion. Patch 1.32.10 on the PTR has received its second iteration, a few changes in there, and now we want to do a feedback video, a kind of a collaboration, a discussion here in this roundtable format where we, share our thoughts, our views on this whole matter, what we think about the PTR, and for that I have some of Europe's best players by my side. One of each race, you can see him here in the webcam. Spiral is not willing to give his webcam, but the other guys you can plainly see. And I think we jump into it right away without wasting too much time. So right now we're in the patch notes in the new iteration. We're starting off with Undead. These are mostly the same as from 2 weeks ago, but the Impale has been addressed a little bit here as well, changed a little bit. The level 2 Impale was nerfed a little bit more, so as you can see, it's now 15 damage less on each of these. And Frost Armor has also been rescaled. The previous version was an only 2-second slow on level 1, which was pretty crazy. Now it has been increased. I have given my view on this already in the video I did and uploaded to YouTube. So I give it now to our precious guests. I think XlorD is the first one that makes sense, since he is the Undead player here among the dudes. So XlorD, what do you think about these changes? What do you expect from these?
So the Impale change in general, I think it's a really good idea. I also don't like to play against a XlorD, and of course he was too strong. I don't think that maybe the damage was the problem, rather the duration of the stun, but nevertheless, I'm also fine with the nerf of the damage from the Impale there. So I would keep it like they nerfed it now, and we will see how good it is in the next few weeks and months. To the Frost Armor, I think it's also pretty decent change, because now the Undeads have an incentive to go to skill Frost Armor another time than only one time, like we all did all the time. So we have now the 357 scale seconds of the slow duration, and I feel like it's a good change, and I think I would keep it that way.
Yeah, I would for the most part agree here. I would also encourage you other players here in the call to not just give your view on the matter, but also to disagree with someone if you do disagree on a point, so that we don't just all, say what our view is, and there's no actual debate going on, because this is a discussion. This format is supposed to encourage discussion and disagreement, if there is such a thing. So next we go with Deathnote. Of course, we all know the problematic matchup for the opponent of the Undead race is Human. Human had been suffering for a long time. So Deathnote, you seeing these changes, what do you make of those? What do you expect? How do you feel about them?
Impale damage will be like maximum it's 90. It's not like 150, like 30. It can't be 90, because as XlorD said, he said right, Impale it's around stun, and TC Stomp is just 90 damage. Because currently Impale it's like Shockwave and Stomp together. It's like Radiculous stun, it's the best stun in the game currently, and Radiculous damage. It's just like together.
Yeah, it's definitely a very strong ability, but you also have to consider, I think you also have to consider how the game goes. Just looking at stats purely itself doesn't tell the whole story. And I think actually Stomp is way easier to land as a stun, but that might be, different people having different views. Clap was also a crazy spell, right? That is also getting addressed here. And this is a big nerf. Impale getting nerfed in the stun duration against heroes, and then the damage against everything. But you still would feel that this is not enough of a nerf? Is that what you're saying?
Of course, with damage, yes, it's not enough. And as you say that it's much easier to use Stomp or Impale, but you know that XlorD is always safe. to use, for example, stomp into my army, TC need to went like just like on my front line and my background, so I can focus him with like my whole army, and he have like no way out. But XlorD Impale, it's have 700 700 range. For example, a bolt, it's 600 range. So with this impressive range, you can like cast if very like safe zone.
Yeah, you can definitely land from further away, that's true. But if the TC gets in the right position, he has a bigger impact area, especially if it's level 3 stomp, it's really huge. Whereas the area impacted is the same, remains the same for Impale. The effect gets stronger.
Yeah, but anyway, I think that XlorD is not a problem with currently matchup with Undead. I think like it's a balanced matchup if Undead play like the K standard now. Like I beat 7-1 double VZ, for example, have score with him. I struggles only like against XlorD and Happy. That's all in Europe who playing like this night. But problem is Undead expansion currently. It's too cheap, it's way too strong, and it's unattackable. For example, human expansion, it's 660 gold and 200 like 70 wood, and it's built for 55 seconds. So Undead expansion, it's 100 second, but costs like 220 gold and 210 wood. So if Undead human expansion is like won faster than Undead for 35 seconds, and 35 seconds is 450 wood. Oh, for 450 gold. Because in 1 minute we got 600 gold. So Undead expansion, if we make it equal time, is better for 60 wood. If we make it in equal time, but humans never make in equal time because you need level 3 before you make expansion. You need to up Arcane Tower. You need XlorD when make expo, he will make expo, he will creep his natural and come to you to harass. So when his expansion is already up, you're even not started. You even not started to make your expo on. So it's a big problem currently. Because when so one moment, when Blizzards, like old Blizzards, when makes this game design, they make like for human it's like in need tier 1 expo. For Night Elf, for example, to beat Undead, need tier 2 expo, like, or tier 3 expo. For Orc even, he can't like beat Undead 1-on-1. Anyway, like you want to fight like 50-50, 60-60, you anyway need expansion because Orc will sit like at his Undead will sit at his base very, very long time. So it's not a neat expansion in this game only for Undead.
Yeah, I feel like you brought up some good points. But right now, like to me, it seems that XlorD expansion is played in 3 matchups, like Mirror versus Orc and versus Human. In Undead Mirror, I'm not too familiar with it, but I feel like at least on the highest level, the Undeads are definitely capable of beating XlorD with Deathnote. And I feel like right now the changes that we have might help this in a healthy way. And regarding Orc, I also don't feel like XlorD fast expansion is like very, very OP right now. I think it's decent chances for with Farseer to beat it, and not that great chances, but also chances with Blade Master to beat it. And versus Human, like the last results that I saw, I think also 120 lost a few series against like Chimico and stuff. So, and you also have to take into consideration that in addition to the nerfs to the XlorD, most likely, for example, Human will also receive a few buffs for this matchup. So I feel like the changes that are right now up for the XlorD are a decent start, like to hopefully make sure he is still playable, but not as oppressive as he is right now. And if we dare to like expect Blizzard to monitor the game a bit more closely now in the near future, like they seem to do right now. Yeah, we might just try to adjust these issues like in small steps, like it looks to be right now. And I feel like it's a decent start for the moment.
Yeah, I
maybe,
would also...
maybe my point of view for this one. I don't know why we are anyway discussing now about the expansion, if it's too cheap or something, because we were at the point talking about the Criplot nerf. So yeah, I think the damage is good enough to nerf, but if we want to start talking about the expansion, then we also have to take into consideration that, for example, the human expansion, if you're building it with 5 peasants, you're way faster than the Undead expansion finished. Plus, you can produce their peasants. So workers, Undead cannot produce workers in its haunted gold mine, and you cannot TP to your expansion right away. You have to build another necropolis. So all that points also have to be taken into consideration. So I think that every race also has its more favorable parts of the expansion, like human building up faster, and Night Elf can walk his expansion to the gold mine after it has been built somewhere else, where it's not that easy to cancel. So it's not that easy of a point to say like it's cheaper. It should be more pricey than the human expansion, because it's very different, so to say.
Yeah, I would also say, like, I've heard that point a lot from humans, especially. I think Todd also says that occasionally, that the Undead expansion is so good. But I think we can just, like, I don't know, by statistics, exclude that as not the problem. Like, fast expansion DK, fast expansion Dreadlord has never been the problem. It's only the Cryptlord where it becomes a problem. So if we nerf Cryptlord, we nerf the problematic strategy. It's not like Lich Fast Expo was an issue for anybody. I mean, Kravis played it every now and then, but it's not really an impressive strategy. We all know the Cryptlord is too strong. He's getting nerfed quite a bit. This is a big nerf, certainly. And I think we still want to have the option to remain in the game for Cryptlord or any kind of fast expansion to be possible, but not for the Cryptlord Expo to be so good. And to say that the Undead expansion is too strong when, as I said, only the Cryptlord seems to be the problem or the Cryptlord strategy, I don't think makes the most sense. Yeah, it can be really cheap, but you know, there's always different advantages for different races. Night Elf can proxy expand, then walk over. Human can quickly creep with militia, get mercs, and have a strong mercenary army. For example, if you're fighting early tier 1, the human army with mercs and level 3 AM is normally a lot stronger than the Cryptlord army early on with only ghouls. That's when the human can oftentimes push back. So, you know, different advantages, different things, but yeah, the Cryptlord gets the nerf that he needs, I think we all agree. But we haven't heard from Starshaped yet. For him, it's probably a little bit less about human versus undead, but still, looking at the undead changes here for the first race, Starshaped, what is your takeaway from that?
Well, I like the changes or the nerfs to the Cryptlord because they're not radically changing how he plays. So it's kind of like when they nerfed the Keeper over and over. Like, it was a problematic hero. It was too strong, but you know, it still plays the way functionally. It's still the same, just weaker. And I think it's a good way. It's kind of like Spiral was talking about, where if we want to actually see if this is enough, this is a good place to start. Because a lot of the changes in the past, I think, have been a bit too radical. And I think it's really good for the game to actually give us some time to try this, because it's also very hard on paper, I think. If you just see the numbers, like, okay, it goes from 75 to 60. That's kind of hard for me to process, you know, exactly what that means if there's multiple impales in the early game and so on. So when I look at this, I think it's a great change. I think we're still making the Cryptlord viable. He's maybe more attractive now as a second or third hero because maybe the stun is more important than the damage. The beetles aren't as strong since they removed the burrow and all that. But we're still kind of allowing this play style. That's another thing, because like a lot of people hate the Cryptlord. A lot of people don't like the strategy of like undead fast expansion, and I'm among those. I hate playing against it, but like on paper, it's hard to say why that shouldn't be allowed. You know what I mean? Because it's if we're so used to one meta where people play the Death Knight, Fiends, Destroyer push over and over, and then all of a sudden they make some changes, and you know, a lot of players start doing this Cryptlord style. It gets a lot of like hatred or vitriol. Like, it's not true undead. It's not how you're supposed to play. So like, I think we have to be a bit careful about like over nerfing or hating on a certain type of hero or a certain type of strategy, because a lot of players have really taken a shine to this CryptLord style. They really like the expansions. They really like this macro undead. And right now, it seems that you can play both ways. You can play Death Knight, you can play Standard like you used to, and you can play CryptLord. And if we can achieve both of those being viable, I think that's great for the game.
All right, that concludes the first race. Undead the changes there. Anything else? Someone else got some points they want to bring up?
Yeah, we were just talking about the Cryptlord so far, right? There are still other points like at least I would like to discuss.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, all the other undead points, right? We're not going to go to human because there's a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah. So which point do you find interesting here, Spiral, that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess we can skip the Rod of Necromancy and the Ritual Dagger parts because, like, they seem to be, they are a reversion or like very minor. One point that I find like very interesting is the Boneyard change.
Yeah.
Because so far Wyrms were in theory a pretty powerful unit, but like for the time to them to get up, pretty much every race had decent answers in that time. Like they get countered kinda easily with a bit of time. But now that the sacrificial pit is removed, I feel like it could be a good change for sure. I like it. I'm a bit alert. Like I'm not sure if it might be a bit too strong, but that's hard to say right now. Obviously, like I could see it being a very nice addition for maybe UD versus Orc in certain situations against Blade Master, for example. But yeah, it's definitely too early to tell if it's like OP or something right now. And I think it's a good change in general to see a bit more of Frostwyrm play. And yeah, as long as we monitor the game more closely now with Blizzard, I feel like that's definitely something that can be implemented into the game.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with. I think it's an interesting change, and I think that especially once this goes live, I think people have to scout a lot better because I think all of a sudden there might be worms in your face because like if there's no need for sacrificial pit, there's no need for that heavy wood investment. You can do a pretty quick tech switch. I'm thinking against Nidal, for example, if there's a lot of bears.
Yeah,
people used to go worms all the time before they nerfed the freeze effect, but now it's kind of like the Chim change where it's like it's just a lot more accessible. So you're probably going to get into more situations where you're just going to, okay, I'm just going to throw down a Boneyard because I'm in a situation where I can do that. Let's see if that works out. Maybe I can catch it by surprise. So I think it's a good change, and it's going to make the worm a lot more accessible.
XlorD, how much do you think is this going to help worm play? How much more are we going to see it thanks to this?
I mean, most certainly not like Blizzard intended it, maybe, for being a counter against Knights with Thundering Blades. I don't see that one working out. Maybe against Orc in certain situations, probably. In my opinion, it's not working against Orc if they do it correctly or counter it correctly. So the only two matchups I would see it in is in Undead Mirror and against Nightwolf probably. Especially now against Nightwolf, maybe due to the fact that the Mountain Giants also get nerfed now with the second taunt removed. And maybe the Nightwolves will now stick more to the bears instead of more Mountain Giants. So this could be an interesting counter then, since now you can skip the Sacrificial Pit. But maybe I would rather see also a different approach here from Blizzard, like, for example, that you cannot skip the Sacrificial Pit again to build Frostwyrms, but maybe you could get rather one free shade if you finish your Sacrificial Pit, that you get a shade right away. So you still have to build the Sacrificial Pit. It's hard to tell. I'm not that a big fan of this change, especially for Undead Mirror. It looks, I mean, there are some strategies already which are pretty cheesy with a lot of worms and so on. So I'm not that big of a fan of it.
Like gargoyles, or like gargoyles and worms, or
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and like this change would definitely make the Sacrificial Pit feel a bit stupid. Like you have this one building where you can build a unit that can't attack and is just a simple scout. I'm not sure how much you would get that. Like it would be really like a rarity, I guess, in certain base lane situations or where the Undead maybe plays with more macro-based strategies like gargoyles. But it's pretty weird, like to have this one building that produces one scouting unit. That's it. But then again, shades are very good, and like I feel like a change, such as Daniel suggested, that a shade would pop up right when the sacrificial pit is finished, could be very strong in my opinion. Like, I mean, it's just 75 gold in the end, but it definitely makes people like to get this, building much more. And shades are very good and very annoying to deal with. That I can tell you for sure.
Yeah.
This is
go ahead.
maybe even more useful, like against Orc or Undead Mirror. It's against Night Elf, I think not, as like XlorD said, because mostly before Wyrms got nerfs, they slow heroes like for 10 seconds. So why Undead like players is played every game like Wyrms and Wyrms against Night Elf, and Wyrms is very to make even one Wyrm, it's very like expensive for wood. It's around like 500, like 450 maybe wood to make like a sacrificial pit, to make like Boneyard, to make Wyrm. So it's very expensive for wood. But now maybe with fast expansion with XlorD, we will see it against orcs even, I think, and against Undead in Mirror.
Yeah, I was gonna disagree a bit with Spiral because I feel like not requiring the sacrificial pit is interesting because of how strong that building is, because of how strong shades are. So like if you compare it to if you don't need an Ancient of Wind to get chimeras, that's a nice change, or that's like a very one-sided change because a lot of situations you don't want that Ancient of Wind. You're just getting it so you can build the gym. But the sacrificial pit is really, really good. Shades are amazing units. So like it's interesting to see if it'll ever see play just for shades. And like in the Undead Mirror matchup where it might happen a lot more, I feel like aren't people, if you're going to play gargoyles, you're probably opening with ghouls, so you're going to have a lot of wood. So I feel like getting the sacrificial pit isn't that difficult already. I'm not sure.
The problem with shades is, in my opinion, currently like we have the trend to smaller maps in general. So, for example, if you remove now Twisted Meadows and the other bigger maps, and the maps getting smaller and smaller, then the need for shade is basically not there to have one. I mean, of course, it's perfect if you can see the opponent on the map, but on small maps like AZ, for example, or Echo Isles, I mean, you can often, like know where the opponent is and what he's doing, basically, if you're on the top player level. So that there's basically almost no need for shade nowadays. So in this kind of situations that you want to build Wyrms, then I think it's a good change if you look at that one, since shades got a little bit more useless than back in the days of Warcraft 3. So it's hard to say, to be honest. We have to see how the meta evolves, and especially in Undead Mirror, I don't see that huge of a problem for Night Elf or Orc, but rather in Undead Mirror. So we will see.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I mean, we all know that Wyrms are pretty underplayed. Now, I also respect XlorD's points. Playing mass Gargs, Wyrms, hit and run, never fighting, expanding, harassing economy for 20 minutes straight might be kind of cancer, but I don't know, maybe a risk worth taking because seeing some more Frost Wyrms wouldn't be too bad. Outside of that, you guys want to bring up any other of the points of the Undead, or should we move on to the humans?
The Frost Armor, I definitely like that they nerfed it on level 1. I'm not sure if I like the scaling for level 2 and level 3. Like, if I see those numbers, like, my eyebrows, they rise quite a bit. Like, 5 seconds is very much, and 7 is pretty insane. Like, you're basically always loud as long as you fight with the Undead. And I talked to Daniel a bit about it when the patch initially got released, these notes, that I could potentially at least even see UDs going for Frost Armor on level 3 already.
Oh my god. Okay.
and maybe on level 5, like maybe, I don't know. And yeah, I feel like 3, 5, 7 is a pretty huge scaling. Maybe make it 3, 4, 5 because the spell in itself is already very strong, providing you bonus armor and such a long slow duration. So personally, I would prefer to see 3, 4, 5, but that's maybe just me.
But I from an Undead point now, Frost Armor, if you look at the numbers, it's not pretty clear that you're gonna maybe skill on level 4 another time. I mean, Frost Armor over the Dark Ritual. Not sure yet. But if it would be 3, 4, 5, I'm pretty sure nobody would skill Frost Armor another time. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Now at least we can think about like skilling maybe at level 6 also Frost Armor once again instead of the most useless ultimate ever. But yeah, I think 3, 4, 5 would be way too less, to be honest. It's not an incentive basically.
I don't think like even if these numbers stick 3, 5, 7, I have a hard time seeing any situation where you're going to pick Frost Armor at level 4 because having 1 point in Dark Ritual is so strong. It's such a good spell to have just 1 point in. And same thing with Frost Armor. The only situation I can think of is if maybe it's like Razor Man style. Someone's going Mass Raider and right-clicking your heroes. Maybe you'll get level 2 Frost Armor.
No, Starshaped. It's, for example, you're playing like Craft, XlorD fast expansion, and after it will be late game with Frost Wyrms, where like he will use Bat Riders. So but anyway, it's not armor. So fuck no. I was wrong, but
No, but that would affect. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, we're talking about the duration here exactly. So, but I'm just saying that I don't know what the number would have to be for anyone to actually want to pick this at level. Like, that's the problem when you have 3 really good spells on a hero. Like, even though this is really good on paper, I don't see anyone picking Frost Armor level 2 at level 4. I think it's always going to be Ritual and Armor because like just getting that first effect is enough. It does so much.
Yeah. And also, like, I think Blizzard's initial idea was to nerf the spell a bit because it was that strong on level 1 already.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like 4 seconds, which it was earlier, would be a fine intermediate way for level 2. And then 5 or maybe 6, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Level 3 will most likely not matter, but yeah.
But it's also cool. I like the idea of spreading your points. I think that's a pretty cool thing because we don't see it very much. It's very often you have just 2 spells. You're gonna level 2 coil of 1 aura and then level 2 aura. So having a hero where you can actually spread them out and it makes sense, I think that's cool. I like that. So I'm not really sure if we want to see. Do we want to see level 2 Frost Armor? Like,
and exactly. And it also is very, very annoying to play against. Like, for example, if we argue like this, there's not a huge incentive to pick the skill on level 2 or level 3. Like, there's a lot of spells in the game currently where you feel like this, like, let's say Thorns are Aura or Mirror Image. They are very, very rarely used, for example. I'm sure there are lots more other abilities, but yeah. I don't like this argumentation that there's not the hugest incentive. Like, the spell is very good right now. A little nerf on level 1 is probably needed and will probably reach the live servers. And level 2 and level 3 are maybe just a bonus. And let's not forget, it's not just the duration that increases, it's also the armor. So
yeah, I've heard this point many times before. The spell is so strong on level 1. Why is it so strong? We should nerf it. Honestly, I don't agree with that. Like, you can't just look at a spell and be like, oh, this spell is strong, and it shouldn't be that strong on level 1, let's nerf it. Because this has wide-reaching ramifications. Like, some stuff has to be really strong for the game to be balanced. I would say Frost Armor has to be strong for Undead to have a chance against Orc in the late game, and also against Knights very often. So strong Frost Armor is needed. Another thing that people bring up is, well, it's an annoying spell to play against. Yeah, sort of true. It slows you down, but there are counters to it. For Night Elf, the easiest counter is available with Abolish. And for Orc, there's speed scrolls. Normally, multiple speed scrolls should be available, and also Dispel you can use. For Human, it's more difficult, as their priests are hard to use. But you can spread out the Knights. There are counterplays available to it. And, playing against difficult stuff has to be somewhat allowed. Like, I, for example, hate mana burn, absolutely hate it. But imagine if mana burn suddenly burned only 40 instead of 50, burned only 80 instead of 100. It would be trash. It would be horrible. It would be useless, and the hero would be dead. So you have to be willing to accept some annoyance for the game to stay balanced. Like if Frost Armor had gone through with 2 seconds slow on level 1, that's ridiculous. That's absolutely crazy.
It's not just about like you can counter it, yeah, but in some senses you can't counter it because even if I have Abolish, once I right-click something just one time, like they'll cast Frost Armor, I don't have the reaction time. Like I'm gonna get everything slowed, and then I'll abolish it. But then there's still gonna be 3 seconds where everything's slowed. So there isn't really counterplay in that sense. Like removing the Frost Armor doesn't take back the frost effect that's already been cast on all my bears or whatever.
Yeah, but it does prevent them from getting slowed again, as if it had remained on the target. So yes, there is very much counterplay. There's something you can do to limit its effect. Isn't that counterplay?
Yeah,
sure.
For example, you could also make a hex on the unit. Even if it's frost armored, you can still chase it anyway. And the same goes for Entangle. So that's basically your counters already.
Yeah, but I mean, we're not removing Frost Armor in general. Like 3 seconds is even now really, really good. And together paired with a speed aura that only 2 races have access to, like it's a huge buff. Like, it's still very, very strong.
Yeah, but what's it's a counterplay if you just entangle a unit. The speed aura does nothing for you, or if you basically go for the hex with the Shadow Hunter, also the speed aura does nothing for you. So,
but it's not just about slowing down the movement; it's also about the attack speed. At least for me, like when I think of Frost Armor, what's annoying me the most is that everything's like just slowed. In general, it's not only about movement speed, but that's also, it is an issue because Undead has the Unholy Aura. They always have a mobility advantage, and then you add on to that the Frost Armor effect, which it can get out of hand in a lot of games, I think.
I definitely feel like 1 second nerf for level 1 is not too much to bear at this stage. Like, it's a decent try to see how it will play out, similar to the XlorD. People might argue it's too little of a nerf. Some might argue it's just fine. And I think like nerfing level 1 Frost Armor by 1 second for level 1 is definitely a good starting point. And if it really turns out that Undead can't win anymore against human, against orc, then we can definitely readjust.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would have liked to see the 2 seconds just to see, because I feel like that would have been fine, but yeah.
It would have been crazy, dude. It would have been way too strong.
Crazy.
Believe.
Agree.
All right, I think we covered Undead, which brings us to Human, the big recipients of buffs this patch. But in the newest iteration, another nerf also found its way in. So showing it on stream right now. Improved lumber, knights have sundering blades, priest spell range increased, tower repair. That's the one I'm a little concerned about. Tanks change has been reverted. And a slight AoE nerf to Thunderclap. And of course, our human resident in the round is Deathnote. So Deathnote, tell me, how do you feel about these changes? Where does that help? And what else is needed, and is it fair, and so on?
These changes you just useless. I don't want any change in this patch. Like if they backclap again, just like remove all changes. Because like they all like are useless. Blizzard don't understand the game concept. And why we buff like priest range when need to just make priority for dispel? That priority for dispel is more than priority for heal. If you just like use dispel, fuck off, like heal, just dispel. That's all. It's like enough. Like 600 damage, it's enough. Like it's 3 like lines of code. Who knows like some language of programming, so he knows like it's 3 lines. Just do it.
I know that Blizzard tried to make the priest more easy to use, but the thing is, when the game was programmed, it was so long ago, so there's apparently a lot of opaque stuff in the code where they can't really see through it too easily. So they tried to do what you're talking about, but that's not an easy change. Apparently they weren't able to do it, whereas this one is an easy change,
So it's very hard. Like against Orcsam, like he used lightning shield. You try to dispel. Like you use a dispel like 7 times to dispel one like chain life, not like wolves, for example, or just like lightning shield. And also you have after no mana because you like West all. You need to just like use dispel, wait 8 seconds after that, and just okay.
Yeah,
It will happen.
usually, though, it doesn't seem to be that bad. You could also turn one priest healing off, but I know it's a little tough to do. But of course, this is PTR, right? They're supposed to be balanced. So
And,
we all know that Undead was favored against human, and that's getting addressed with the Cryptlord and so on. How do you see in the other matchups against Orc, for example? How do you see the balance there? And against Night Elf, how do you see the balance there? And how are the changes with that in mind?
Against Orc, it's now a very hard matchup for me. It's Headhunters, it's so much overbuffed. I think like XlorD is agree with me. Like almost every Warcraft 3 player is agree that Headhunters are buffed. Kind of like besides Orcs, of course. They got 6 buffs in like 30 patch. 6. It's not like not 2 buffs, not 3 buffs. It's 6 buffs. What the
agree.
hell is that?
Yeah, but like going by old patch notes, I think doesn't really matter much. Like also, Demon Hunter used to mana burn level 1 for -100. That doesn't mean we should go back to Demon Hunter burning 100 on level 1.
That was a good idea, though, honestly.
For human now,
we always have to look at the current situation, and I agree. At the moment, Headhunters are looking really strong. They were played a lot on ladder. Now even in pro play, they're looking really good. But we've only seen the Headhunter meta in pro play for like 2 months. I think it's way too early to tell. Like, give the guys, the pro players, some time to adjust. It's only been a few weeks almost.
like today, fast is just defeat Chaemiko.
Yeah, but you can't take one single series. Like, I was gonna bring that up anyways because I knew we were going into that direction. Like, looking at Remake Asia, the humans actually did pretty good against all the orcs except for Lin. Like, Fly and Focus, they lost almost all the series against the humans, I believe. And if I just go through their recent results, I don't see the humans doing too bad versus the orcs in general.
Without Headhunters, you mean? Yeah.
No, even with they tried their Headhunter openings with tier 3 styles, and Chimico and Sok, I believe they always went for Blood Mage second tier 2 push, and it was really, really strong. The Orcs didn't have an answer on that one.
Also, Remo, I disagree with you that 2 months are not enough to see if it's too strong maybe or not. I think it's enough time, actually. So a lot of players, we had like the big tournaments, the DreamHack, for example, where the player could play against each other, against the Headhunter style and so on. And we saw a little bit of diversity against, for example, in Undead versus Orc. So that 120 adjusted to go for Fast Fiends instead of Fast DK or Cryptlord expansion. But overall, I have to agree with Deathnote that I also feel like in big numbers, actually, against Orc, especially with Undead, I feel like sometimes you get like overwhelmed with damage. And in addition, you basically only have the Nova against it. And the only good strategy to win against Headhunters, I feel like, is a lot of AoE damage. And it's hard to deal with, especially if they have a Headhunter or a Heathcrow with them in the fight. So the damage output basically from the Headhunters is much higher than from archers, from fiends, or rifles. So I think there is the problem. And also they got the range buffed, which is also just adding to the more efficient damage dealing part of Headhunters. So yeah, it's hard to play against them. I have to agree.
It's I have no problems in late game, but it's like Keeper. Sometimes, like my friend is Orc Worker, I talking with him. He said like Headhunters is like not good in late game. I thought, man, like also you can say like Keeper is a bad hero because like in early game Keeper can kill everything, but in late game you doesn't care. Like they already won a game. Like Keeper, some Headhunters like Orc in like 4 minutes in game, you have like 7 Headhunters. It's just like push. And just creep human as green spot, like open every like clean game, like 7 Headhunters against like few footmans with defense upgrade, level 1 Archmage, like all red footmans, and you just hunted like a dog, like with red hit points. Like you try to escape, just don't touch me, please. And after that, Orc when understand like soon MK will be out, he will creep just like middle spots.
But shouldn't we talk about that in the orc section? Like, I feel like this is a bit misplaced now. We were just striving a bit on the human versus orc matchup, and now we're like in a deep discussion about how headhunters affect all the matchups. And
I'm just like, we shouldn't discuss it. We will discuss it, Spiral. No problem.
It does somewhat fit, but XlorD, you said 2 months is enough of time. I don't know. I think that's a weird thing to say. Like also, like when Mass Talons first came around, Magic Yang and Moon and all that, how tough of a time did orcs have? They were suffering for pretty much years. And then they found an answer. Of course, we hope it's not going to take years for people to figure out Farseer headhunters. But sometimes it takes a while, especially human and orc builds, I think. But isn't the strategies allowed to be a little strong for a while? And aren't players allowed a certain amount of time to try to find an answer?
Can I make a point here? Because there's a much more recent example you can take than Talons. I think Toxie's in the chat, he pointed this out. If you look at the Night Elf against Orc matchup, without basically any changes, it went from incredibly Night Elf favored to almost incredibly Orc favored at this point. I mean, Night Elves are kind of struggling. And, we didn't have a patch. We didn't really address that matchup.
Well, we did.
It just kind of happened. Yeah, but, it's nothing huge. So, like, I kind of agree with Remo there that we get a bit like it's tempting. It's very tempting to say, "Oh, we just need to patch this." But I mean, I think, especially what Deathnote's talking about, seems to be a very recent development. So, of course, when something new pops up, it's going to look very imbalanced because people haven't reacted to it, haven't had time to adapt to it. But if you wait maybe another month, maybe it'll be completely useless. Maybe people hard counter it. So I think we have to have a little patience. But I do agree. I mean, we'll get to headhunters, but I would love the idea of like if they make the buff to make people try it out a lot more. They buff the range of headhunters, and all of a sudden, wow, we see how powerful they are. And now, what if they remove that range buff? Maybe they'll still be pretty good. People just didn't try them as much before. Like I'd like to see something like that. Just like take it back and see what happens, or make it an upgrade at tier 2 or tier 3 to get the range because they're a bit too crazy at tier 1.
Yeah, and Starshaped have been like wrong because Europe is playing Headhunters like very, very long time. It's like not Asia, of course, because Europe is finally ahead like with Headhunters meta compared to Asia. Because like Grabby is already like played 2 seasons, and he beat in first season like first season on Warcraft Champions he beat 2-0 Blade. In second season, like he beat 2-0 Hawk.
But here, please note that Hawk was very, very addicted to World of Warcraft at that time. Like he wasn't playing the game for a long while.
And there's so much focus on. I agree with Spiral because like you look at one series. Oh, Chaemiko lost to this guy, or this guy beat that guy. That's why it's imbalanced. I think you can't really say that because maybe next week there'll be a tournament where Night Elf wins everything,
And please also note, Grabby was a former world champion, like which nobody of these guys ever closely reached. So, yeah, you can't argue like that.
That's also not a good argument, by the way.
No, but like, it's true. But
he's only playing HOTS and then winning against Hawk.
But that wasn't at that time. Back then, he was much more active.
Are you sure, though?
I mean, it was a big surprise as well. Back then, nobody on top tournaments was playing Headhunters. It was Kiwi on ladder, and everyone on ladder. It was considered a ladder strat. And Grubby almost defeated Happy as well with a Farseer Headhunter opening. But it took a while for people to figure out how to beat it, like delay your tier 3, rush level 3, DK, maybe even play Fast Fiends. Undead's found answers to it pretty quickly. In my opinion, Farseer Headhunter is not strong against Undead at all.
Agreed.
Maybe Human just needs to find that answer as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I also admit that Headhunters are very strong right now, and I wouldn't mind them like getting a small nerf, let's say them costing 5 or 10 gold more for starters. Like, adjust them slightly and see. I'm really scared that we'll get like these gigantic changes again, like we've had in the past. And I can live with a little nerf for Headhunters, but just make it,
I'm honestly really excited to what's happening right now with the Headhunters. Like, we've been seeing Blade Master and Grunts for so long. Orc Mirror at the moment is crazy. There's Farseer Shadowhunter, there's Farseer TC, there's Firelord, there's Headhunters, there's Tier 3, there's Torrents. There's all that stuff, and I think it's really cool. And then I read people in chat saying, oh, this is BS. we need to go back to Blade Master grunts. And I'm like, why? We've had Blade Master grunts for 10 years.
Remo, you really slightly not right, because what Blizzard is did in like 130 patch, they just make game much easier. Like before, you need to know like creep route, how to harass, for example, with Demon Hunter human, how to creep warding for level 3, like harass, just like buy some potions, harass. You need to like learn the game. But after that, they like made the keeper that like it's named by keeper patch. So now, like in Headhunter's meta, if like Cash, for example, he lost to every like very noob orc, like who even like not close to like average level because he played cheese. Now like every really top like orc in like Asia, Europe can lose against every average like orc player who cheese with Headhunters, because it's just not required skill. You are really not right, and to counter this cheese, you need to play like same cheese. It's
Why
like
is it cheese?
against cheese.
What makes it cheese?
That make it cheese?
Yeah, what's cheese about making headhunters? I don't understand.
The milk.
You make Headhunters, you tavarage. It's a cheese.
Yeah, but they're not always used like that. It's not a cheese, like it's also a general strategy.
Yeah, there's a lot of strategies with headhunters. I mean, I will agree that it seems to be one of those strategies that's a lot easier to play than it is to play against.
Yeah.
Agree.
But we've seen that a lot. Like if you look at like the mass archer stuff, that's another example of something that's very easy to play and hard to deal with. Mass hunts against orc, same thing. So there are and have been a lot of strategies like that. But
yeah, I mean, in essence, that's the case with every single strategy. Every single strategy is a little bit harder to play than hard to play against, or vice versa. It's just where on the spectrum are you? And I know people get very frustrated with headhunters, but Undead has a very good answer to it nowadays, and Human maybe can find that as well. I really don't think we're at that time where we can say headhunters have to be nerfed. Like seriously, on pro tournaments, it's been only around for like 2 months. It's been hardly any time.
Honestly, like DreamHack Asia was the first tournament where it really was used in a lot of games.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting to watch. Like there were so many new builds, creep routes, and everything. It was super interesting as a viewer.
Like maybe in the official games, but you also have to see they're playing a lot of NetEase games and so on. So they are trying different stuff against headhunters, pretty sure. And they tried to pull off that headhunter strategies they did in the DreamHack Asia finals. But you know, I think the 2 months are already enough of time to see if it's too strong or not. I'm not saying headhunters are too strong, but the time frame is way too enough.
I disagree. I think they definitely can take more time. And it's one of the, I think people just don't like change. That's a lot of this. Like if something gets buffed, Crippler gets buffed, headhunters get buffed, people start playing them. Then people go, oh, that's bullshit. We need to go back to Blade Master Grunts. That's the true skill. Everything else is cheese. It's like I think we have to be aware of that kind of bias, that we kind of associate the old meta as like the true Warcraft, and whatever they buff and change, that's just cheese. That's not real Warcraft. That's just you're a bad player if you play those styles.
And yeah, sorry.
I just think that we should kind of be aware of that and be careful with how we word ourselves in that situation.
That's true. And also, like I remember Infi being really furious in like some recent translations about Blizzard patching the game so much now in very different directions. Like he said, like all their practice of like I don't know how many years is pretty much for nothing now, and that's also like a bit part of the beauty of Warcraft 3 to like strive for perfection in your strategies, in your builds, and in every aspect, and like throwing off pretty much like a whole strategy or in timings and everything every 2 months because you feel like something might be too strong. Yeah, this maybe also.
And by the way, why are we talking even about 2 months? I think the patch was released in 2018 with the Headhunters buff. So why are we talking about 2 months? Only because you see it now maybe in the tournament?
It was only proven to be really good on the highest level very recently. That's why.
Do you think so? I already played against Headhunters already like in August.
Yeah,
pretty
sure. It doesn't matter, bro. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Okay, I see.
I'm sorry, but the proving ground is tournaments. That's the proving ground.
Yeah, and not the NetEase games, which pros play also, I guess then.
Yeah, that matters for practice, certainly, but it doesn't prove how good a strategy is ultimately.
What do you think about lumber mill buff? Like this, like lumber harvesting buff?
Thank you, Deathnote. Let's get back to the human changes, please.
Human.
We went off on an eternal tangent here.
Yeah.
Improved lumber mill, pretty interesting. I heard very many different voices about this. Some people say it's good for humans. Some say it doesn't matter much. Some say it's way overpowered. Lawlied, for example. I personally don't see this being so big of a deal, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. What do you guys think about that?
I'm gonna lose all credibility here by stating that even though I played human in the past, I thought that the upgrade works like you can simply harvest double as fast the lumber, like, and then only when this patch the nodes got released, I realized that it's just the capacity that they can carry, so they don't have to walk as much. Yeah, I feel like it's a decent change and it will help the humans, but it's not over the top, and I like it because it's definitely been an issue for the humans to fend off like constant undead or elf pressure against the expansion maybe, and requiring to have like 15 wood peasants at lumber, and which you later on definitely don't need anymore. And I feel like it's a decent change to help them a bit at this front.
Because in when lumber mill is close, this buff is give maximum like around 3%. And like what is 3% means? And second buff, second upgrade, it's like cost 200 gold. For example, I never to make this second upgrade. I make it like maybe last time like 7 years ago, maybe. Really. Because it just useless buff. It's sometimes when I have like not enough lumber and I play on map like Echo Isles, I just make second lumber mill very close to lumber for my like peasants. So it's much better than make second upgrade. It's first, it's much easier, it's much faster because you can power build, and third, you get more lumber because I tested it before I started to use.
So the only place where I would really see this making a big difference is against Night Elf, because normally in the ultra late game, the way Night Elf usually comes out on top is with way better upgrades. They have the MGs, they have the fairies, maybe some chims, bears, dryads, and they all get the same upgrades, right, as we know. So that's usually where Night Elf kind of pulls ahead, if they can't pull ahead anywhere late game versus human. With that, the concern for some Night Elves is that it's going to be easier for human to keep up in the upgrade department, getting like 6, 7, maybe 8 upgrades for their units. And with that, they're going to be even stronger in the late game against Night Elf. Sasha, is that something that you have considered? And what's your view on this lumber mill thing?
Honestly, I think all of these changes are pretty good. As a Night Elf player, I will get to the Sundering Blades, I suppose, but the lumber mill issue, I think you have to look at it. It's not like a tool to deal with harassment, which kind of makes it a bit misplaced, I suppose, because they want to help the human versus undead matchup, and it's a lot about killing peasants. But like you said, I think this is more like in a passive game where you're both kind of sitting on 2 bases, you're both taking up, then getting this upgrade, I think, is really good, and you don't have to get 20 peasants. So I think it will definitely help, especially in that matchup against Night Elf, and I think that's a good thing. I don't think human players enjoy having like 20, 30 peasants. Like it's hard to handle. It's hard to play with, and I think this is an upgrade that it doesn't. I think it doesn't affect a lot of other matchups. It doesn't really affect the balance. It doesn't it just kind of makes the game a bit easier for human. I think that's good.
It's not a game, man. It's like 3% is make game easier for human. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but it's a small change, perhaps, but it's a small change. Like many small changes can add up. This combined with Sundering Blades, combined with other stuff, I think it can add up to something.
And as Remo said, like in late game against Night Elf, like when Night Elf have chimps like Mountain Giants, like it's almost no humans who can beat Night Elf in late game. For example, for me, it's like double barrack, rifles like 70 like supply, and I just push. So if you like destroy Night Elf expansion, you just like back, you just like creep some map, you can win. But in equal game, you never will win Night Elf in late game without like even like massive upgrades, like 3-3-3-3 on all units.
No, I think I disagree quite heavily. I think
Yeah.
human has a really big advantage. Like the late game army, I think that's the problem with Night Elf right now is that they can't match the late game strength of human. So if you're
Right.
both just sitting there on 2 bases chilling, that's good for the human because eventually you get those 3/3 knights with inner fire. You have mortars, you have triple hero, and Night Elf is sitting there with like giants. You know, like the late game is really really bad for Night Elf in my opinion.
And
But
Spiral, you
you-
also wanted to chime in?
Yeah, I think Spiral has something to say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not that close to the matchup right now, but when I played Human or Night Elf, I kind of felt a similar way like Starshaped does. Like, I definitely feel like Human right now has a little bit of an advantage over Night Elf, and in the late game, it's really hard for the Elf to keep up with like inner fire and yeah, constant regeneration with regeneration scrolls, heal scrolls. The sustain from Human just gets really hard to handle for the Night Elf, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, also slow can be really strong, like inner fire, slow, clap, so many good spells for
Yeah,
human.
everything. There's so much synergy, and like Night
For
Elf
Night
just
Elf,
doesn't
it's just
have-
like Orb of Venom and then Mountain Giants or something.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of opposite to what Deathnote is saying, because like as Night Elf, you probably want to win before it gets to that point. Like you either want to do some kind of push or like pressure, or you want to try and take a fight before super late game. Because once you get to the super late game, you're not going to win. Most
talk with Infi, you think like another. Like if you talk with Infi, like TH, they all think like double rifles. Like you went to 70 supply. It's only way how to you can beat Night Elf. If you look like every like Infi replay against Moon, against Light, it just always double rugs, rifles, tier 2, and stay for tier 2 before like you kill it. After you kill Night Elf expansion, you can then press for tier 3, but not before. But if you think you are a better player than Infi, for example, and understand this matchup better, and like Knight is so OP, okay, then okay.
Yeah, I don't think we're saying we're a better player than those, but I cast a lot of games from Infi and from many other humans, Sok and Chimiko, and there's a lot of games where they go tier 3 fairly fast. Like normally they go 60 supply with a couple of rifles, do a bit of
Like,
creeping
if
on the map,
you-
and then they go tier 3. There's a lot of tier 3 that happens way before the big push.
if you want to lose against Night Elf, then you should go mass rifles and push, because like that's what I want you to do as Night Elf, because I can get Mountain Giants, I have Orb of Venom, like I have the hard counter. What I'm really afraid of is the human player who will go tier 3 really fast, who will aim for the late game, because I don't have any tools to deal with that. But if I have someone spamming 80 food rifle priest, that's the easiest thing in the world to deal with, because I can just get giants and orb.
In
So, like,
Warcraft, as like every player is its main, it's not units, its main is the heroes. If like you can creep your heroes equal than your enemy or even better, you will win almost with every unit composition. XlorD, do you agree with me that heroes is the main in this hero like game?
Of course, like if this would be chess, then definitely the heroes are the queen of the game. But I also have to sadly agree with Starshaped, Remo, and Spyro. So the only games I saw on different tournaments is basically if they have enough time, the humans, to make a great army, then they are probably favorable in this matchup. And sometimes you see like games where the warden comes just in, kills all the peasants all game long, which I think is from a viewing standpoint pretty boring. So I hope we can somehow get away from this one.
yeah.
But maybe we have in the future some more changes, like maybe the panda buff, or especially I feel like the casters of the human are a big problem for Night Elf, and maybe the new flare damage from the fairy dragons will do something about it, but we will see. But yeah, that's my opinion. I don't know too much about that matchup, only the few games I saw on the tournaments.
Something that I have a pretty tough time gauging, tower repair has been increased. Some people say it's a big deal, some people say it's not a big deal at all. Now the problem here is we don't really want towers to be too strong defensively. What we're worried about is towers being too strong offensively. And I have an Orc and a Night Elf right now in the call. So how worrying are these changes? Are the tower pushes going to be coming back? Because in Mirror they don't matter, against Undead they don't matter. But we used to see a lot of tower pushes against Orc and Night Elf. Is that a concern that arises again? Or is that not really doable in the meta anymore nowadays anyways?
For if you look matchup with Night Elf, you can't tower rush because it's Keeper. Keeper just like summon trance and you can deal with it. But it's will be help for scout towers. For example, now when you're playing Mountain King first and 2 Wyverns will come to your base, they 100% will cancel your like tower to which up to guard tower. So you have no chance to out repair that. Like 2 Wyverns is over. Same like with 2 Fiends. If 2 Fiends attack like with some time and you will not like try to surround Fiends with Footman, like tower will die. But after this buff, it will be not because 5 seconds it's 25% repair. For peasants, it's give to us 100%.
Yeah, it's
for repair
33% actually. It's 33%. So it's a big increase on scout towers. On guard towers and arcanes, it's a lot less. But on scout towers, it's 33% more.
It's 25.
No, it's 33.
No.
Dude, I tested it in game. Like the HP it regenerates per second is 33% more.
So tower repair rate now is 20 seconds. So like it will be 15 seconds. It's 5 seconds. It's how much percent between?
Yeah, but no, it's not correct. Like there's some weird stuff in the code going on. You can't just do it mathematically though. You have to test it. And I did test it. So 20-second tower repair currently is 200 HP. And 20-second PTR is 266 HP. That is 33% more healing, more repair.
So what I would say about this is the patch notes themselves tell us that this is a defensive buff for humans. Blizzard are worried about certain ranged pushes, whatever that means. And so they buff the tower repair rate. So that's something we should keep in mind when we talk about this. It's supposed to be a defensive buff for human. They're supposed to hold pushes. I reacted very strongly to the wording of this because in the patch notes it says, I can quote it verbatim here. Currently, even if a human reacts immediately to a threat with a handful of peasants, it's still not enough to prevent their towers from going down. And the question I have is like, well, why is that a bad thing? If I'm attacking your tower with a bunch of units and you have a handful of peasants, why should you be able to keep your life forever? I should be able to kill towers, in my opinion. I don't think they should be this unkillable defensive structure. So I'm not sure why this is necessary whatsoever defensively, and it will create and can create a lot of issues offensively, and not tier 1 tower rushes. I don't think that's not good. But there's going to be rifle pushes. They're going to be a lot harder to stop now with the repair rate. There can be issues against Orc with the Fire Lord tower rush. I think we're opening up a can of worms here that's just not worth it. It might not be an issue, but it could be a very big issue. So we shouldn't even go there, in my opinion. Just remove it.
Yeah, and I don't know, like I feel like we address the issues of human against undead and maybe elf pushes against their fast expansion like in other ways already. I feel like human always kinda gets to tier 3 and then it's just about how fast are they and how early do the knights come out. I feel like this is not really needed, even though the towers sometimes might feel bad. But then again, I also very rarely see humans get the improved masonry upgrade anymore. Like, maybe, if you want your towers to be a bit stronger, then just get that upgrade once again.
Yeah, the tower push that seems to look the best at the moment in the meta is the Firelord tower push. It's pretty rare, but it's still seen sometimes. Spiral, can you make an assumption how much stronger that strategy is going to be, if it might be oppressive with the new tower repair rate?
So, I don't know. I have a hard time to like really tell how much of an impact this change will have. Like, but I feel like as long as Fast Headhunter is a meta strategy, I don't think that humans will have a will really want to blindly go for that strategy, because I do still feel like this should be a pretty good counter to such strats. But still, I don't really want to see this kind of buff in the game.
Yeah, I agree with Starshaped. I think this is, as he said, possibly opening up a whole can of worms that we don't really want to have. Tower push meta was one of the most annoying things we ever had, and it lasted for a long time. So I would also prefer to not see that tower change go through and just give them other buffs. I mean, they have other buffs already. Like, for example, Sundering Blades, which I know that we have some people with some opinions on it.
Definitely, Remo. Definitely. So, as far from my point of view, if you see the matchup from Undead against Human right now, I think if you go for DK standard fiends against maybe the tier 3 Human or the fast expansion, it's pretty even, I have to say. So I would say it's 50-50%. So the better player usually wins this game. And it's, for me at least, already pretty hard to play standard, actually. So nowadays I would play against every Human probably the XlorD as well, because it's much easier and just you have a better feeling for the game. And with DK standard, you have to play almost perfectly every game, in my opinion. And the improvements I see now for Human, especially the one that Knights now have Sundering Blades by default, is not a nerf or not a buff against XlorD. It's rather a buff against Deathnote, because against XlorD, the most dangerous time is when the XlorD crapped his expansion and comes over to the Human expansion to delay the humans expansion and kill a lot of peasants. I think this is the most critical point in the game, so that Knights having Sundering Blades by default is nothing more positive to play against when you play against XlorD. So I see it rather as a point or a buff to play against Deathnote standard. And this is a huge point, because if you have it basically by default, you have it faster, you can produce more Knights in time, and the Knights with Sundering Blades, which are pretty strong against the Fiends, especially now with the Frost Armor nerf, maybe the 1 second, and Knights are pretty fast also with even if they're slowed by the Frost Armor, they're pretty fast. And the Humans always have the both, of course. So it's only making the tougher for Undeads to play DK standard. So you might see even more a shift to XlorD play. And I think it's not the right direction to nerf the DK standard play.
All right, I guess I'm gonna hop in here. I would agree. I think Deathnote said this earlier as well. In XlorD, like DK Fiend standard against Human standard is pretty balanced, and this might shift it a little bit in the Human's favor. But honestly, I think that's okay. Like, Human has been suffering against Undead for a long time. If suddenly we move into a meta where Human is a little favored, I think that's okay for a while to see how it goes. More so than about balance, I like this change in terms of meta. DK Fiend standard against Humans Fast Expo is so boring. I have seen so many games, I've casted so many games. The Human expands, he techs up, he tries to get to tier 3 and survive in time. Get out the pally, get out the knights, maybe a couple of gyros, and then call the militia and push back the Undead attack with like 60 supplies, 65, whatever. And right there is where the game is decided. Like, right there it ends. Either the Human can defend and he wins, or the Undead kills the Human defense and he wins. And it's so boring. It's so binary. I really don't want to see that kind of game anymore. It's been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of games. And this change helps Human get the Knights out more quickly, them being stronger and being able to defend better at the expansion, which is good, because I think Undead should be moved, not necessarily forced, but should be moved away from that strategy, so that it isn't always the go-to strategy. I want to see Undeads harassing early with a DK, then coming in with a Lich and doing all that, but then counter-expanding, so that we have a 2-base meta, and it's not always this boring, all-in push that is so extremely binary.
But Remo, we have it nowadays, so the only thing is now, if you cannot kill the Human expansion, then you have only one thing to do. Basically, the last try is to creep the entire map. Pretty boring to watch. You creep the entire map, then you sit in front of your expansion and place an expansion. Because before you creep the entire map, you cannot make an expansion as Undead. Never. It's not possible.
Yeah, it definitely makes things a lot easier if the human has nothing to creep. But you can also like creep tactically smart. Like for example, on Concealed Hill, you could choose which corner you creep away. The human's probably gonna get something, but you can go for the big camps. And I would disagree that it's very boring because the human knows if the undead falls back to creep, he has to contest those camps, so that creates tension on the map. And I know you have very strong feelings about this, that it's almost impossible for undead to counter expand. But I'm not sure, first of all, that's true. And I think it's worth exploring that. Like, if we move away from the undead all-in push, maybe it turns out it's going to be too hard to do. But I think there hasn't been that much development been done there yet.
Yeah, I mean, Deathnote maybe can say that also. We played a lot of ladder games, Deathnote against me, and I tried a few times to expand. But if Deathnote and Deathnote did it, realized that I was expanding and not pushing and not making all in, then he most of the times was in a pretty good state because he just sent a water elemental or footmans with a defense shield, and you cannot kill him, because you have low level heroes. You have to have the level 2 coil at least, the Nova at least to kill the footman. Otherwise, you cannot place this expansion. And in the background, the human doesn't have to make a lot of towers because he's canceling the expansion. And UD wants to set up the expansion. So I think this is also shifting to a pretty boring meta, to be honest, especially with the buff of selling items for a higher value now. So this is even more tending to the undead pushing aside to creep the entire maps, sell maybe even more the items and get a bigger army, more banshees, and then expand. I don't see it working that you're gonna have some kind of another meta, to be honest.
So Deathnote, do you think the undead cannot counter expand with DK Fiends unless he creeps the entire map? Do you also think so?
Yeah, XlorD is right. And I also like to play Griffins. XlorD is now that when I see that undead will passive, just like make good ground tile like Griffins, breakers, and you just destroy undead if you do all right. Because you can creep a map, you will cancel like some undead expansion. He is very, very passive, so you have like all time to do with that. But tier 3 expansion, as XlorD said, like after creep the map is stronger plus bunches. I very hate knights, for example, against undead, because knights is good undead unit, I think.
Yeah, and Remo, you will have like one big fight again after the UD crept everything. Human will try to make a timing push and to cancel this expansion. And if the undead wins, the game is over. Probably because the UD heroes are so high level. And if the human wins, the game is over as well. So it's nothing changed, to be honest here.
All right, but there's also the potential for back and forth. There's potential for a third base. There's potential for that kind of game to be more interesting, unlike the all-in push, which always ends there. So I think we can only go up from where we are currently with DK Fiends.
I don't agree, no.
All right.
If it takes a little bit more of time for the human to cancel the expansion or so, I think the undead is already in favor because he has high-level heroes. He has the maybe 70% of the map's items, and it's super strong for the undead then if the human doesn't kill the undead right there. And if the expansion finishes, undead just pushes and wins the game probably. And I don't see the possibility for human to make another expansion, to be honest, as well. So I don't agree here.
All right. That's fine. That's why we have this discussion, to bring out our points and occasionally disagree. Starshaped, Spiral, I don't know if you want to chime in on the Sundering Blades.
No, not really.
I think, as far as, I think it's a good change in the sense that it only kind of affects the one matchup that they wanted to. I don't think it's going to affect too much against Night Elf. Whether or not it's a good change for the undead human matchup, I can't really tell you, but I like the idea of maybe opening up more for one base human. Like if you don't have to get the Sundering Blades upgrade, maybe we can just see more Knights in Mirror. Maybe we won't see Breaker Wars as much. Like maybe it'll have other ramifications. But as far as the undead matchup goes, I don't know if it's good enough or if it's even necessary. Like XlorD says, I didn't really think about that, but yeah, maybe it punishes Death Knight players a lot more than CryptLord players. And I mean, if we're just going to talk about personal preference, I'd much rather watch a Death Knight game than a CryptLord game. I think that's a pretty fun matchup to watch, honestly. Like the human trying to defend on the trying to push. I like it. But XlorD, like I never watched. I just close the stream if it's some dude going XlorD and running over, and it's like I don't want to see that. It's not fun. There's not a lot of skill displayed, in my opinion. It's just some guy just.
I just dislike to throw GG against XlorD. Like I do it in like one of maybe 10 games, because when I see like when Undead is really playing good, then I can write GG. But if I see like he plays so terrible, I just no. He not deserve.
So it might.
That I think.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so it might just be like XlorD said, like maybe it'll just punish that style too much and not really affect the XlorD, which is probably the anti of what they want. They want to help the XlorD situation. So it might be misguided. I didn't think about that at all.
Yeah, rather like having this Sundering Blades by default, they should rather think about something doing against this first time Undead push after creeping their own expansion with all the beetles, all the ghouls. That's the hard part to hold, and that's basically like 80% of my games are pretty much over against human after that one push, because they lost too much and my expansion is standing already, so with 2 roofing towers. So they have to make something about that. Maybe, I don't know, nerfing maybe beetles or something, but I don't think this is the right way to do something against XlorD. Because
sorry.
Because if this goes through, I'm pretty sure I will play XlorD all the way still. So in all the tournament games, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But you're mostly playing XlorD anyways.
No, I mean on ladder I'm trying. I'm against Deathnote and other humans. I'm basically almost trying every time Deathnote to play against them and to improve this one, because I know with XlorD it's over mostly in under 10 minutes every time, and it's pretty boring to play.
And how about peasants? We'll see some about them.
Well, I think this is a lot of, patches, changes where they kind of need it, though. It's hard to say where exactly these changes are going to lead, but it's some nerfs against the XlorD. Arguably, this might be more of a nerf to the DK Fiends with the Sundering Blades. I still think it's a good change. And as Starshaped was alluding to, hopefully this can help us maybe to move away from Breaker Mirror, although that seems still fairly unlikely with how oppressive they are on tier 2.
Yeah, I just want to add, because I know Thorzin couldn't be here, but like what XlorD just said is, I think, exactly what he was talking about when we were talking. We made a video about this. And like the patch notes, when they talk about the tower buff, it's like, they're talking about these ranged army attacks that are really difficult to hold. But then Thorzin said, well, that's not what's hard to hold. What's hard to hold is the XlorD ghoul beetle attack. They'll surround your tower, they'll kill everything. It's like, that's what we need help with. It's not so much about the ranged armies. I think that's a good point.
Yeah, that's hard to address, though, properly, right? Because if you want to make, I don't know, water elementals and footmen good enough to counter that kind of timing, then that's going to change everything in all the matchups. Like, what would help in that scenario would be like a 1 charge item AoE dispel, which does like 100 damage. But that would be something pretty wild to introduce to the game. So I think it's hard to help out that specific situation in an isolated way without, making a lot of other things imbalanced.
Well, the XlorD, like what the XlorD enables is a pretty safe and easy expansion, and I personally never was a fan of the summons being them to not expire ever. Like, I feel like if that was the case, make it like, I don't know, 2 minutes maybe, but if that was the case, that they would expire at one point, maybe that would also help. Like, then
no,
you don't have DoD running over with 20 units, but maybe just 16, and then it's
that wouldn't change anything. Like 2 minutes.
It was just an example.
Yeah, but I don't think this wouldn't make anything of a change.
It's change anything. No. It's just a beetle, but sometimes like you play on Northern Isles late game against XlorD, and he will send like 2 beetles on boss expansion. You even can't expand at the same time when you fight, because beetle justice will like kill your peasants. So you need to scout, send 1 gyrocopter, send 1 unit, beetle will just run at your base and again back into like expansion site and borrow it.
Yeah, I mean, but this is I don't see this being a problem because it's with every summons you can send them into the peasant
But
line. I don't-
you know and exactly when I will make, for example, second expo. But with beetles, when they board, you know exactly when it happens. In the every like second on fight.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have to borrow it. I just park it there. I mean, that's wouldn't change anything as well if I don't have borrow or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of insane if you think about it. It's a summon that lasts forever, but I'm pretty sure Blizzard will never want to change that fact because they love their unique aspects to certain things. You know what I mean? Like, beetles are the only summons in the game that don't expire, and they really love that kind of stuff. That is something very specific to that. Like, for example, Night Elf units and Night Elf buildings can uproot and they can eat trees and stuff like that. If there's something very specific, very unique, a very unique characteristic about something, that's always something they want to stick with.
What about permanent peasant like militia? You just like clicked, for example, to like back to work, for example, in UK, and so they lost a form, and you can make some.
Maybe
build-
also adding Thundering Blades to militias.
Yeah,
Just be careful in case Blizzard is listening. They might not pick up on the
This
sarcasm.
was a joke. Sorry.
yeah. It's just a joke, but
All right, something I was very happy to see was for tanks to not be buffed again. I hate tanks. I think they're cancer. And also, if we ever do see Undead counter expansion, like DK Fiends counter expo, tanks are a big problem in that attempt, as they can be very hard for Undead to deal with. So, yeah, I know tanks aren't seen much at the moment, but I think that's the way it's supposed to be. I also don't want Necro Wagons to be played a lot, so these cancer strategies, also Liquid Fire Bat Riders, I think it's good that they're not played. But anyways, that's my view. Guys, how do you feel about siege engines?
but what about Mountain Giants then? They're like better than tanks
They're
destroy
getting
the
nerfed.
base.
They're getting nerfed.
They got nerf to destroy base? What you say? What did you say? They can run like if tank was so tanky as Mountain Giant. You know how many hit points will have? Like 3k or 4k. Really? I'm not kidding.
Yeah, I mean, Mountain Giants are also pretty crazy, but normally by the time a lot of MGs are out, we have Knights, right? With upgrades and stuff. Human seems to have the best way to deal with Mountain Giants, don't they?
Like make then need to buff tanks as like Mountain Giants. It's just like it's
No,
like
dude.
34 tank. So make it to shot the units and destroy everything.
No.
As Mountain Giants does.
I think this is something that we learned over the last half year. Like, having things be too tanky is really annoying. Like, if things are do a lot of damage, but you can kill them, you can kind of deal with them. But if things are so super tanky and you can't kill them, ultra annoying.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with Deathnote actually, because I definitely think you can compare giants with tanks and bats. Like it's a very non-interactive style. It's not fun to play against. People hate it. I definitely think as far as I'm concerned, you could remove tanks from the game. You can remove bats from the game, like the Liquid Fire at least. You could remove giants from the game as well. Like it's not fun. It doesn't even need to be an option. Like I don't think I really wouldn't mind if tanks were just gone entirely. Like why would we even want to see a single tank? It's just never fun, in my opinion. Even like the tactical tanks, like they're acceptable, but still, just not fun.
Like last game out of games, like Fog against Happy, he always like make like 4 Mountain Giants send into Expo and Mountain Giant just like without armor destroy expansion and like he will like stop them and all 5.
Yeah, I think it's stupid. I think giants are stupid.
Yeah, but we really rarely see like tanks being messed right now, right?
Yeah. Thank God.
I feel like
Thank
they're
God,
a decent spot, and it's good they didn't like
They
reduce the XP and
Yeah, don't touch them.
Yeah, sometimes they're used as a strategic unit, and that's fine.
Yeah. Honestly, I think the high XP is the best way to deal with them because Starshaped may not like the tactical tanks, but having like 1 or 2 as distraction, maybe 3, I think that's fine. But we don't want to see 15 of them. And with that, we don't see 15 of them because the hero levels just get completely out of hand if they give so much experience. So I also think tanks, in the state that they're in, are in a really good spot. If it's okay if we see them every now and then, but we don't want to see them all the time. All right, last point for human. I think we don't really need to cover priest dispel. It's kind of a minor thing. Is Thunderclap. This one was newly added into the latest iteration. Thunderclap gets a little bit of a range nerf. Level 2 range is almost the same. Level 3 range decreased by 50.
And it's not a little bit, it's very huge. Because if you just you in game, just look how it's very, very like huge spot. It's like not like 7% of you can see. It's really like if you look at size, it's about like maybe many units you can clap. And now like matchup with orc, for me it's very, very hard. As I said, like against Hithunters it's very hard to play. And after like clap nerf, I even don't know like how to beat orcs. Maybe it will be even much harder after that.
Have you seen the video, Deathnote, of the comparison of range?
No.
So how do you know how much of a range difference it is?
Because I understand the game well.
Remo, could you maybe show it on stream?
Yes, I'm about to. I'm looking for the video right now.
But I think these numbers could be some of those that are like a bit misleading. I think it is more than it seems. I might be wrong though, because if it's like a circle, an area, so changing it. I think it's the surface area. So it's like a much bigger change than when it looks like on paper.
So I'm posting the link, YouTube, in the Discord. You can all look at it, and I'm going to
show it on stream.
Yeah, I am. So, introduction, blah, blah, blah. Oh, wait a minute. So, Mountain King. It's Reforged graphics, which is kind of weird, but I think we get what it's like. So, level 1 clap at the beginning. I mean, there's no change there. That one remains the same. Alright, now we have level 2 clap. And you can see, that's exactly the same. Left and right, exactly the same. With units stacked very close to each other.
It's, I have to see even, like, it's reforged graphic.
but it is the same. Like, if it was smaller units, like maybe ghouls, and they're super, super, super close to each other, maybe it's more. But level 3, as you will see, there is a noticeable difference. So you can see it's quite a lot bigger. Yeah. And there's a weird bug. Apparently, it's also damage capped at like 3,000 damage or something.
This is an insane difference. As you see, like just insane difference.
Yeah, but only on level 3.
Oh.
And here's the damage cap thingy.
You know, I would rather see keep the AOE range the same, but maybe rather implement the damage cap. I would rather like to see this one.
You know, I think like for clap not need to nerf, because clap it's only one like strongest like human bots in the game, because like us undead are like us night elf, we don't have like a very strong some things, and clap it's what is this?
Well, I think human has a lot of very strong things, especially tier 3, but I also think clap doesn't really need a nerf. It seems like this is most likely or mostly going to affect the matchup against orc, where so much of the tier 2 battles comes down to clap. And that matchup seems very balanced right now. Understandably, against Night Elf, clap can be pretty crazy when the Night Elf is playing bears and the MK is standing in the front line, clapping them over and over. But Night Elf is getting help already. With a panda, with the fairies, that's definitely going to help them out. I don't really think clap needs a nerf at all, is my opinion.
I do.
I do think so too.
Fuck that spell.
Like, doesn't the Breath of Fire, Carrion Swarm, everything has a damage cap except for Clap?
Nova doesn't have one, Stomp doesn't have one, and
Yeah,
Yeah,
all the
but-
broken spells.
Impale
but
doesn't have one either.
Yeah, but I mean, you have there some kind of limitation to hitting units, you know? And Clap is like, it seems like unlimitable to me, at least. I don't know.
But you can't compare, like, for example, Panda with Mountain King with Clap, like Breath of Fire, because you can hit air, you can hit mechanical units, you can hit buildings. So how you can compare with Clap, who can like hit only ground units?
Yeah,
Of
but
course,
only
but there's-
ground, but is this Dizzling, or how is it called, the units as well?
Yeah,
Clap
exactly.
wins
Like
games.
it does a lot of damage and it slows. So Clap is very strong, but yeah, it only hits ground and around you and stuff. You have to move forward. There's of course always different aspects, but is this needed balance-wise? Is human looking too good and we have to nerf Clap?
Yes.
No, of course.
I
I'm
mean,
not sure.
if I look from an Undead point of view, if we are into late game and the human heroes are also high level, it's with the same army size and the high hero levels, it's pretty much not possible, in my opinion, to win as an Undead, because at least if you're playing a DK standard, because the Clap is also hitting pretty hard. I think it's even better than Stormboard level 2. So I can also see it being there a huge problem to me. I don't know what the other matchups. I guess against Orc it's also pretty strong. Maybe it's there. It is needed pretty much against Orc, maybe, and Night Elf. I don't know. But
Yeah.
against Undead, it's maybe a little bit too strong, especially if the human heroes are high level.
But what
Yeah.
about anti-magic shield? And Club does 0 damage.
Clap does 0 damage.
With anti-magic shield, yes, right?
Yeah. How much does Clap damage? How
You
much
know,
of it damage?
like
I don't know
one-
how much.
Like one second clap on 110, yes, right? How many claps you need? Like 3 claps
You
to-
would need 3 claps. Yeah, exactly.
for anti-magic shield, and after that, in 1 second, you and all about all units is again an anti-magic shield.
Yeah, but you also could make like Blizzard additionally instead of making the useless water elementals. Like no human does that. I don't get it.
Blizzard is very hard to use against undead because it's first it's about position, second it's glass cannon hero and can't be nuked, especially when undead like playing XlorD, for example, Impale, Coil Nova. And this old guy is went to tavern for chilling.
Yeah, I think like even with the proposed change, like level 2 Clap basically doesn't change. It's about level 3 Clap, which is almost only the like relevant against Orc. Even against Night Elf, it's rare to see MK level 5. And against Undead, it normally never happens. If MK gets level 5 against Undead, Undead has lost anyways. Yeah, I
But
don't.
how he lost? What about anti-magic shield, Remo? It's like undispellable. Like you have like level 3 level 5 Mountain King, level 5 Paladin, use both spells, and hero get 50 damage. And you
Yeah,
lost the
anti-magic-
game? What the hell is that?
Anti-magic
Yeah,
shell
but-
is very strong, true, but just because things are strong doesn't mean they have to be nerfed. Like some things are just necessary. Like
I mean,
Brilliance
some-
Aura, if Brilliance Aura didn't exist and you're like, oh my god, I can have a hero which gives mana to everything, that would also seem crazy. But strong things are needed to keep things in balance.
Oh, like I told very serious to say like level 5 Mountain King, if like Mountain King gets level 5, it's very strong, but I really see no difference compared level 5 Mountain King and level 1 Mountain King if undead have anti-magic shield. It's just a difference with hit points, like how
Yeah, but that's another topic for like the last point, right? When we were talking about what might miss in the patch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's maybe just focus on Clap itself now. And yeah, as an orc, I feel like it's definitely like always the worry question: what do I do if MK hits level 3, and what do I do especially when MK hits level 5? Like against TC, the human at least can add a bunch of breaker, like, and then TC doesn't escalate too crazily, but the orc on the other hand doesn't really have a great solution to Mountain King level 5. And I personally do like that change. Especially if it seems to only affect level 3 Clap. Yeah, I feel like it's a good change.
All right, a bit of a split opinion here, but again, this is pretty much what this stream is for, to discuss a little bit and have difference of opinion. But that is pretty much it for human for now, or is there something that you guys still wanted to bring up on those changes?
Let's go to Night Elf.
No, okay. Night Elf now finally. Starship is still on the call, and Starship is going to have these 15 minutes to all to himself because after that he has to leave. So Night Elf changes coming up. First, it was only the mana for the bears, but now a few more things have been added as well. Mountain Giant second taunt has been removed. This was added for a very long time, and buff to mana to fairy dragons. A reduction on the base attack that they do, but a buff to mana flare form and the damage that they do in mana flare form. So, Starshaped, please tell us what you think.
All right, so I wrote on the official forums what I thought about this, if anyone wants to check that out. But basically, when I see these changes, the first change here, it worries me quite a bit because it seems like the developers are out of touch, or they don't understand the fundamentals of the game, because they said we're adding 25 mana to the Druid of the Claw because it's a quality of life change. And for the life of me, I can't figure out what that quality of life change is. Like, adding 25 mana doesn't do anything. It might be a nice buff, but it doesn't do anything. So I'm not sure, like, when they get something so wrong, I get kind of worried. Like, what do they mean by who? First of all, who asked for this?
I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to jump in here though. But right, on a spellcaster unit, if it has more mana from the beginning, I don't see how that's not good and not a buff. Especially this mana only goes for Adept Bear, by the way. Master Bear has 50 more mana, so you can cast double Reju right away when he comes out. So I think you need to elaborate here a little bit, Starship.
No, yeah, because the point here is that when they made the change, I'm not saying it's not a buff, it's obviously a buff, it's extra mana. My point is that in the patch notes, they said this was requested by the community. First of all, who requested this? I have no idea. And then they said it's a quality of life change. That implies that adding this 25 mana does something. And I'm just saying it doesn't do anything. A basic bear can come out of the ancient lore and cast Roar. An adept bear can already cast Rejuvenation, and a master bear can cast Rejuvenation and turn into a bear. Like, there's no quality of life change. Nothing happens. Nothing's added by doing this. It'll help for sure, maybe against like some rifle pushes, you'll have more mana, but I'm just saying it seems like a very misguided change. Like, they fundamentally misunderstand how the game works if they think this is a quality of life change, because nothing changes. That's my point. Okay. So that worries me.
I kind of get what you're saying, but maybe they didn't use the term right. Like, quality of life change in my book would be something like removing shop delay, right? We all know shop delay is super annoying, and removing that would be a quality of life change, whereas this is a buff. But I think what they're feeling is you're going to have a bear. Now you can use 2 spells instead of 1, and that they interpret as a quality of life change.
My theory is that they didn't realize that casters get more mana as you get adept and master training. So their quality of life change is that now you can cast Rejuvenation when your bear comes out, but they can already do that. I think they've misunderstood how the game works. That's just my theory. Otherwise, I don't see why they would add 25 mana, because it seems to be to go from Roar to Rejuve when they pop out of the lore. But I don't think they just misunderstand how the game works. Anyway, that's a minor point. I think it might be a nice buff. It might help you Night Elves hold some pushes and stuff. But the main point here, the main nerf here, is the second taunt being removed. And I think that's a great change because nobody likes giants. Nobody likes to play against giants. It's not fun to watch. It's not interactive. It's not a fun unit. It's not a good design. So I think that's great. They should definitely remove the second taunt. But there's a big but here, because if they remove the taunt and then they make no other significant changes, because the changes they've made to mitigate this, they've made Mana Flare better, which is only used in one matchup, and it's already very, very strong. It doesn't need to be buffed. And then they've made fairies weaker as a combat unit, which is only used against undead like a year ago. Nobody does it anymore anyways. So I don't understand how they can make such a significant nerf, which is removing the second taunt, and then adding these useless buffs that don't affect the game at all. If you nerf the mountain giant, you have to buff the bear. This is my argument. If you're going to nerf the giant, you have to buff the bear. That's the only way it makes sense to me, because by removing the second taunt, you're basically removing the giant from the game. It's going to be a terrible unit, and we're going to go back to just bears and dryads. Bears are kind of garbage right now. Night Elf late game is in a lot of trouble if this goes through. We need more assistance in the late game. We need to have more synergy. We have to have more powerful units. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I actually do agree with Starshaped. Like, Elf, there's like basically like 2 or 3 good things about the race right now. It's Orb, it's Mountain Giants, and yeah, maybe sometimes Keeper and or Demon. Like,
And Wellspring is good.
yeah, but like Bears definitely they do feel lackluster in pretty much every matchup right now. Like if I'm Orc and I play against Bears, I'm pretty happy. Once I've got like my 50-60 food armies, they're pretty weak. Same is definitely for human in my opinion. Like the human army can deal very well with Bears, and yeah, I also believe like that Undead definitely prefers to play against Bears than pretty much any other unit from the Night Elf right now. And yeah, like if you remove Mountain Giants, which is the second taunt, which is definitely a needed and good nerf, it could still be argued if they should be nerfed even further, but it's a good start. They definitely have to buff something else for the Night Elf. Like I know that the Panda gets maybe buffed, and that would probably also help the Elf right now, but still like the Elf units, they don't feel very good right now. I agree with that, like Bears especially.
I would say that Night Elf late game, it's kind of weird. It always seems to me like they have pretty weak spells on the hero side. But first of all, the upgrades. Night Elf can make use of upgrades way better than everybody else. Upgrades and orbs. Night Elf can carry up to 3 orbs. Not in every matchup can you play triple hero, but in some you can, and it can be really strong. And the Mountain Giants, I don't think are going to be useless with this, although I might be wrong. I'm not a Night Elf player, maybe they are useless with this, but they still have a lot of damage mitigation. They still have insane damage reduction, and some armies just have to fight with A-click. Some armies you can't singularly micro every unit, and then the Mountain Giant might still soak up a lot of damage. But yeah, Night Elf has orbs, which are really strong, upgrades, which are really strong, and also have chims, which they can fit into many compositions. Against Undead, super late game, chims can be good. Against human, it can also sort of be fit in. So I wouldn't disagree. I wouldn't agree that Night Elf's late game is hopeless with this. And the Fairy Dragon buff, that's a big deal. This is going to be a big buff to fairies, especially against human casters, and maybe against statues, but I don't know if that's going to be very good. But if it is, it would be a big buff to Night Elf versus Undead, because Night Elves have a very tough time dealing with statues. Maybe with that, it might be doable. I don't know. And the Panda is like the best late game hero that Night Elf can have in terms of spells. However, he's a very bad orb carrier. But I don't know. I wouldn't say that Night Elf is so hopeless, but that's what it sounded like from you.
Yeah, okay. So let me calm down a little bit. I'm not saying it's hopeless. I'm not saying Night Elf is hopeless. Night Elf has a lot of strengths, but my point is that I do firmly believe that Night Elf has the worst late game macro army. Like if it's a 2 base against 2 base game, Night Elf has the worst army because they have the least amount of synergy. They have the worst hero combinations. They rarely have a good triple hero combination. And a lot of their units, like the Dryad, for example, is incredibly cost inefficient. It's 3 food for a unit that is unarmored and like has 425 hit points. So Night Elf, I think, is very, very strong when they can be 2 base against 1 base. They're very strong when they can be 1 base against 1 base. But as soon as you get to that 2 base against 2 base situation, I feel like they fall off quite a bit compared to the other races. And by simply removing the second taunt and buffing fairies, we're not addressing that at all. We're just making Night Elf even worse. And we might still see giants just because they didn't buff bears. Like bears are still kind of bad. So we might still see people going for giants. But other than that, I think they are a pretty dead unit without the taunt, because the double taunt, it was a terrible design, but it's what made them good, because it made your opponent mess up. It made your opponent not be able to micro. And as soon as you can micro against giants, they're a campaign unit, because in the campaign, I can click on taunt and it works. But if I play against someone on the ladder and I click on taunt, they will redirect the damage in 1 second, and then the giant just loses its value. So the double taunt was necessary for it to be a good unit, in my opinion.
I don't agree. I think, like, of course, the Mountain Giant is terrible designed. Like, you can interrupt other players from microing, and that in a really stupid way by messing a unit which is never dying, basically. Yeah. And I also don't agree that that Night Elf's late game army is bad, because chimps got buffed. I'm talking now maybe only against Undead. And I have to say that the Keeper meta nowadays, through the Keeper Night of Self, they have a really strong early game, in my opinion. And the Undead is only nowadays, I feel like, damned to go for an all-in push, or otherwise go for a tier 2 expansion with the Gargoyle style. That's the meta right now.
Yeah.
So Night Elf is pretty strong in the early game, so stronger than, or has a good map controls and so on. And I think it's a good change to remove the second taunt, of course. And I don't really see the need of buffing, for example, the bears for more damage or more armor. I don't really see that. And yeah, Night Elves kinda have weak heroes, but as I mentioned, like the Keeper is in late game not maybe the strongest, except he has maybe the ultimate, which is pretty good. But in the early game, it's the Night Elf race is pretty strong, so they have to go from that point of view also.
Yeah, but like let's say against human, Elf is already doing not that great, and removing their probably best unit right now against human and giving them nothing, and even buffing human to a certain degree, like with the Sundering Blades and stuff. And also against Orc, like I really don't believe that any strategy from the Night Elf is like very good against Orc right now, except for the Keeper strat. And even this one gets more and more figured out. And yeah, as people said already, we've seen a little shift there that it's definitely not elf favored anymore right now. And I don't know, like I'm not an elf. I really feel like they're bears or something. They need to get a little buff, because I would love to see some more diversity in their strats again. And right now, like I don't know what they should go for.
Like bears are slow and they can get kited and they can get nuked, but their potential is also really high. They have rejuvenation, they're semi-spellcasters, they can roar buff the entire army for 25% damage, and they actually have the highest right-click damage out of all the melee fighters, with the exception of Pulverize, I guess. Like bears can feel pretty clunky and stuff, but like they have so many abilities as well.
You have to, I think, have a context in mind, because if you just take the bear right now and make it a human unit, then it'd be the most broken unit in the game. Like, yeah, bears are really, really strong in a vacuum, but when you put them in the Night Elf race, like I said, with the lack of synergy, where the heroes aren't as strong, where you don't really have a diverse army, they do kind of fall off. They don't really perform as much as they would need to when there's no synergy available, in my opinion. So yeah, the unit itself is incredible. It has rejuvenation and it's a tier 3 melee unit and it has roar, but it doesn't. It needs to do more for Night Elf to be able to compete, in my opinion.
Like I see. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
If you remove taunt, is what I was going to say.
I mean, in my opinion, Elf has a good synergy. For example, if you look at, you have like 2 upgrades for all the tier 3 units. It's pretty strong. Then you have like the Dryads with the slow from the same building with the bears, which are attacking the slowed units easily and moving up to them to the units which are slowed pretty easily because they are not that slow. Yes. And for example, now against human, you get the Panda. I don't know how much of a difference it will be against human, but now you have the Panda maybe, and in addition, maybe a stronger flare damage from the Fairy Dragons, which is against all the casters. So it might help already, even though it's removed.
All those things you mentioned, I agree. I mean, that's the strength of Night Elf, and it makes itself known a lot more in a 1-base game or a 2-base 1-base game where Night Elf expands and just tries to defend. I think in those types of games, all of those things you mentioned are incredibly powerful for Night Elf. But as soon as you get to a more macro-oriented game, the Dryad, for example, is one of the worst units in the late game because it's 3 food. It's very, very inefficient. It has 200 mana, single abolish, unarmored, 3 food. So if you're both sitting on 2 bases, just making a 100 food army, like the best possible army, the only thing Night Elf can do is bears and dryads, and every other race can have a much more efficient, stronger 100 food army, in my opinion. Yep. So that's the issue with Night Elf, is that I'm never comfortable going late game because I'm never comfortable that my army is good.
I understand. What about Wisps? Just pull 5 Wisps in human casters, and he just can fight. Like, you can TP on your main and just lost expansion because you can't fight against Wisps.
Yeah, you can clap them, but Starshaped, to your point, I understand you. But if you look at the 100 versus 100 armies, maybe the best armies, I also see Night Elf falling off. But as I mentioned, like they only have 2 upgrades for all the units. You have to utilize that in some kind of way. You cannot camp there and wait until both have the biggest army, of course. And that's also the case for maybe Undead against human, or in general against Orc, for example. If you camp until every tech tree is researched and so on, I don't also think that Undead probably is the best race in the end game. So I think Night Elf has to utilize then, expand maybe more, attack more efficient, which is possible with the staff.
Yeah,
and
but
all-
there are so many maps where there's just the one expansion. So I agree with you. Like if there are more maps where you can expand several times, then yeah, that's great. Because then you can. But if it's like Amazonia, Echo Isles,
Yeah.
then we're both. I mean, it's really hard to actually push. It's really hard to actually end the game because your opponent's just going to sit there.
Yeah, that's. I mean, the maps are also then the different stuff, but yeah, I am also in favor of removing Echo Isles and AZ because it's also pretty boring to watch. So, but unfortunately, other maps are getting removed now.
Yeah. Starshaped, I get your point, what you're saying, like, Night Elf army isn't the most well-rounded. Like an Undead army, for example, with Destroyers, Banshees, A-Bombs, Wagons, Fiends, a lot of good units that work well together. Human army, the same. You have Gyros, you have Knights, you have maybe Rifles, you have Casters, very good. But just having few units doesn't necessarily mean you're having a bad army. Like, 80 supply upward, like 80, 90, 100 supply, normally Undead does way better against... Night Elf does way better against Undead if it's a Fiend-based army. Because it's such a big swath of units rolling in, and it's very, very hard for the Undead to micro in that department. And oftentimes, if the armies get so big, 80, 90 supply with Fiends, you can't even properly focus fire with Orb anymore. So I know what you mean, like it's not the most complementary army for Night Elf, but there's also strength in simplicity. As XlorD also said, if you get all of your units, to 3-3 way faster than everybody else, that can be a big advantage.
It's only Starshaped saying that Night Elf is weak in late game.
No,
I'm as a
agree.
human, like, can kill maybe like 1 or 2 units in 100 supply, because you just can't micro your units, and you need always like 3-4 scrolls in every fight, and when just this is detonate into your casters, you just can't fight.
Well, you
And
have
you
clap.
always must position. Clap don't kill this, bro. Thanks for me that you know that.
Yes, Byron, what's up, bro?
Like, even if it went to kill Wisps, like, there will be like 10 HP and they will be slowed. Like, if you manage to position your MK close to the Wisps, then what can they do?
Then Mountain King have 0 mana after that?
Yeah, then you're gonna buy a few mana potions. And you have a Brilliance Aura.
What are you talking about? Brilliance Aura. Brilliance Aura now is just like blue color. After nerf.
Blue color.
Transmog.
I don't know. I can just say that I agree with Starshaped. I feel like Elf will need a little bit of a buff if they nerf Mountain Giants, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Starship too. Sounds
I
like
don't
a
know.
reason.
I mean, I see 1 Mountain Giant nerf, and I see like 4 Night Elf buffs. I don't think we've been in a bad
Yeah,
spot.
but like I
if
said,
you
they're
ask me.
very targeted buffs. They're like it's a nerf to one very specific situation and a buff to one very specific situation. But the one nerf is across the board. It's used in every matchup. So
The
you
bears
can't
are
split
used
it.
everywhere as well, bro.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the fairy buff. If you're comparing like
Yeah,
they nerfed
fairy is
Giant,
specifically against human, yes. But the bears are played against everything, and the panda
there's no bear buff.
could
I'm okay
be
with
played against everything.
25 mana buff. It doesn't matter in my opinion. It's not going to matter. It's not going to matter where it matters. It's going to help you in certain defensive situations, but it's not a buff. It's not going to help you in the late game. It's not going to make your army better, which is what Night Elf needs in my opinion.
All right.
Panda, for example, is don't need even buff. Because as I said, it's a hero who damage air, who damage mechanical units, who damage buildings. So it's very unique and a pretty good hero even now. Maybe some add stats like +1 agility, like +1 maybe strength is, but even not intelligent, because for Panda now it's enough mana.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is a good point because we have to kind of look at the Panda buff as a Night Elf buff, like Remo was talking about. It is pretty much a Night Elf hero. I mean, we might see it some more now, like human against orc, if there's a lot of headhunters, but it's basically a Night Elf hero. So it is a Night Elf buff, and I think it's a welcomed one. I still would like to see. I mean, I guess you'll get to that later, but I would like to see the damage return. Like the max damage is nice, but I still want the old damage back. But it's an idle buff, and I think we have to remember that. So that might affect a lot. It might be a game changer to have a better panda.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the panda. I think the panda is one of the coolest, flashiest hero in the game, and he's kind of underplayed at the moment. So I think a buff for him is warranted, and he still pales in comparison to many of the other AoE heroes. I think that's a big problem for Night Elf in the late game. Like, Undead has Lich, which is really good, and XlorD, which is really good late game. Human has MK, which is really good late game. Orc has the TC, and arguably Blademaster sometimes against Undead. But Night Elf, in terms of abilities on heroes, pretty poor. And even if they get the panda buff, which seems like they will, it's good damage, but it's not the control. It's no crowd control with slow or stun, because the Drunken Haze can always be dispelled. So I at least think the panda buff is really good. I think Deathnote, you said you don't think it's necessary. Spiral, XlorD, how do you stand on the panda?
Yeah, Spiral and me already talked about the patch, of course, in private, both naked. But yeah, I don't know. I already feel like Panda's pretty decent nowadays as well. Maybe a little more buff is good for him as well. But it's hard to tell for me. Looking at the numbers, I have to play the game with the panda buff and see how it works out. To be honest.
Yeah, I also feel like it's hard to just judge by seeing like the attributes getting raised by 1 point. I feel like the panda abilities, like in general, they do feel good but not amazing. And like when I played Night Elf, especially against Undead, I sometimes felt like he did too little even, but maybe I was just bad. And yeah, like as I stated, I feel like Elf definitely needs some sort of buffs after the Mountain Giant nerfs, and yeah, this is definitely one possible way which could help them in like pretty much every matchup except for Mirror, maybe even against Masan or something.
If you play against Keepers or
Yeah,
nice. And they used to be like the anchor point for Night Elf, the panda.
Yeah.
And I kind of like, I guess a lot of people got sick of that. A lot of people got sick about everything that was Warcraft, Talons, Panda, Grunt Raider, Walker, everything was like stale. But now we're kind of looking back fondly. It's like, I kind of miss the panda. It was a pretty cool hero. I miss having that. Like once I got level 3 panda, I felt really safe. I felt good about myself when I had a level 3 panda. Maybe I can feel that way again,
The only bad thing about a panda buff for me is I don't want to have a panda level 5 running into your base with a staff and killing everything with a breath of fire all the time. That's kind of a thing I don't want to go back to because it was really annoying and not fun to watch as well. It's the same like tanks and mountain giants just attacking your base.
Yeah, that's true.
I hope it's not that way then.
I think pro players got a lot better at dealing with that kind of hit and run stuff though. Like, when do you ever see Panda 5? With Panda first, usually? And I don't know, in that case, if you see that coming, maybe you could even go Dreadlord or something. I don't know. But also scouting, shades for Invis. I think people got a lot better at dealing with that. And level 5 Panda base harass seems pretty far down on the list of concerns.
Yeah, and also like its abilities doesn't get buffed, but it's like the mana pool and like the survivability. So it's mostly a fight buff because if you let the panda like use 5 breaths inside your main base without reacting, it's probably also a mistake on your part. So yeah, I feel like this is a decent change right now.
I think it's small enough. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's fine.
Yes, I think it's a small enough. This is a good level for patches. This is what I like. This is small enough, big enough change rather, where it's interesting. It will be fun to see how it works. It's nothing too extreme. It's not like the first couple of patches with the Keeper where everything got turned upside down. I think this is a good level to look at. +1 intelligence, a little bit more here, a little bit there. It's a great level to patch things on, in my opinion. So I'm looking forward to this new panda.
Oh, sorry, I just realized the damage got buffed actually. But yeah. It's still fine, I would say.
Nice preparation, Spiral.
What? They buffed the panda? Anyways, I actually have to leave, so I guess you guys will keep talking a bit.
Yeah, thank
Can
you
I leave
for joining though, Starshaped.
Can I leave you with some final thoughts?
Yeah, just really quick in a couple of sentences. Speed scrolls, serpent wards, and items. That's the remaining things.
Speed scroll. Let me speed through these. I'll use my own speed scroll here. So the speed scroll change I think is great. That's the most busted item in the game. I hate it. It's terrible. I think it should cost maybe 100, 150. People would still buy it. 70. That's a good starting point. I think it can be even more expensive because speed scroll is just it's a get out of jail free card. It's a TP. It's like it does so much for 50 gold. It's an insta buy. You're never not going to buy those. I'm glad it's getting a bit nerfed, especially with the item sell value. But I think it can be nerfed further, or maybe even limited. So there's like fewer in the shop. I think that might be a way to nerf them as well. Serpent wards I think is really good because if we're going to keep seeing this keeper hunt archer meta, this seems like a targeted Night Elf Orc matchup change here. It'll actually make it more worth to kill the serpent wards. It'll give you more experience. I think it's necessary for the matchup, so that'll be nice to see. I'm not sure if it's going to change too much, but it will definitely have an impact. And then what was the last one? The item?
Yeah, the auras getting all nerfed and the item sell percentage.
I love it. I mean, it's a buff to Orc. There's no way around it. It's going to benefit Orc more than other races that we're selling for more. But I still like it. I love that the auras aren't as powerful, and I like that we can maybe see selling items as a tactical choice, and not just like, oh, I got the Wand of Mana Stealing, okay, I'll just sell it. But rather, oh, I got this really good item, but I might actually need the gold. I might actually want to sell this now. Maybe I'll rebuy it later from the merchant. I think it'll open up a lot of strategical choices. I think it's a great change.
And it's buff for humans also, because, for example, you play on Northern Isles, you get like Ring, you creep Natural, you get Crystal Ball, you have two useless items, you just come to Marketplace, just sell it and buy a double claw, for example.
Yeah, exactly. More flexibility. I think that's good.
For intelligent heroes like Archmage, it's not many items which like not bad, but it's very small items which good. For example, for my Archmage, good is only Claws or Ring of Regeneration. Even Pendant is bad. So like you can sell all of them and just buy Claws. So it will be help the human.
Yeah. So let me leave you with some last second thoughts here, because I guess you're going to get into what you would like to see change that wasn't mentioned, and the top things for me would be the Priestess of the Moon. I think that hero, it could be worked from the bottom up. Like it's a really boring hero in a lot of ways. They could definitely just like if you want to make Night Elf a different race, if you want to buff it or nerf Night Elf, make it more diverse, then I think the starting point would be the Priestess of the Moon. I think looking at Thorn's Aura would be a great way to change the game, make Thorn's Aura good, because it would be nice as Night Elf to have a decent aura. I'm always jealous of the Unholy Aura and the Endurance Aura or the Brilliance Aura. I don't have an aura that I can use. Thorn's Aura is garbage. I'd love to have just a totally different aura. It doesn't have to be Thorn's Aura. They can just rework it. And then Immolation. I think if we buff Immolation, we might see Demon Hunter first more against Human and Undead. So my suggestion would be to remove the activation cost, to increase the damage on level 2 and 3 so that it scales properly. 10 damage, 20 damage, 30 damage. And maybe increasing the area effect of the actual spell, and maybe reducing the mana cost. It'd be really cool to see some more Immolation, in my opinion, and it might be necessary in this meta. I think those are my final thoughts.
All right, Starshaped, really appreciate you being on. I think you brought up a lot of good points, and thanks for taking the time, and I hope you have a pleasant evening.
Yeah, thank you very much, and have fun with the rest. Goodbye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right, we jumped a little bit ahead there with Starshaped, his closing thoughts. Later on, we're also going to talk about which things we would like to see change that aren't involved in these patch notes. But we're going to stick with the script for now. We pretty much covered Night Elf. We covered the Panda as an extension of Night Elf as well. And that leaves us with the last race in here, Orc, which in the first iteration didn't get any changes, but now they do. And the cost increase of the speed scroll is the first one. From 50 gold to 70 gold, speed scroll is made more expensive, and serpent wards are supposed to give more experience in the future on level 2 and 3. And our orc is still in the call, and we ask Spiral, what do you think about that?
Yeah, first of all, thanks to you guys, Remo and Daniel, for these changes. Like, at least the speed scroll definitely gets on your cap. Yeah, I can see speed scroll definitely being a very annoying item to play against, especially combined with like hit and run, but also like during some fights it's very hard to react super fast, and then it can be very powerful. And considering that the item sell value will be increased probably as well, I definitely feel like it's a fair nerf to the speed scroll. I also like that they didn't just double the price right now, and because yeah, it might it would also like similar to the Rod of Necromancy, where you described about how it will affect all their timings and stuff. Also like the speed scroll, the orcs have certain timings, and like Shadow Hunter 250 gold, once he pops out, you save it and you are ready to go for creeping, and like you just want that when your shadow pops out, for example. And I feel like 70 is a fair start, and we should just see how it performs now. And yeah. Okay, regarding the Serpent Wards, should I go ahead or should we discuss the speed scroll first?
Yeah, I think speed scroll first, because I know XlorD wants to talk about that.
Yeah, I think 70 gold is still way too less for that kind of an item. Also, it's I think 60-second stock until it's again available in the stock, and a 10-second duration for maximum speed, which is way too much. So what I would love to see is either an increase to 90 or 100 gold, and this would be, in my opinion, still be really good for that item. But I would rather like to see the reduction of the duration from like 10 to maybe 7 seconds. I think this would be a good change, in my opinion, because it's basically a really good item which fits orc really well with their hit and run strategies, especially against undead, for example. They see the TP coming in, they just speed scroll away and creep some great camps right away until the undead arrives and the camp is already done, etc. So I definitely want to see the duration to be nerfed rather than increasing their costs even more now.
All right. I think I'm going to jump in here because I also think speed scroll needs a nerf. Not much of one necessarily, but it's incredibly good. 50 gold for that effect. It's great early game, it's great mid game, it's great late game, it's great for fighting, it's great for a hit and run. You can use it for zeppelins to fly in and harass. You used to be able to do it on sappers. Do you guys remember that? That was the most cancer shit ever. Thank goodness that doesn't work anymore.
The golden times.
Yeah, I also think it needs a nerf, but I don't agree with the fact that it should be less move speed that it gives or less duration that it has. Because orcs have played with this item for so long. It's such an ingrained instinct of how this works. You know, alright, this is a bad situation, I need to use my speed scroll now. And if you change the effect of what it does, it's completely gonna throw them off. And we have a very recent example of how this was a bad idea. Rod of Necromancy cooldown was changed from 22 to 26 seconds, and that was so cancer to play. Suddenly, all your creep routes are different. Suddenly, everything feels worse. Suddenly, creeping anything with DK solo seems like it's not worth your time. It messes with your ingrained timings that you've built up over so many years. So I think the move speed increase and the duration of speed scroll has to stay the same. So the only thing that you can really adjust is gold cost. If it's too cheap, make it more expensive, but I think it should still be as strong. Can you increase the timer in the shop so that it's 70 seconds instead of 60 seconds? I think that also messes with the orcs' timings. That also messes with their experience. So I think the only viable way to change speed scroll is the gold increase. And I think this is fine. Maybe even with 90 gold it would be worth it, but 90 gold is pretty expensive, especially when you need heal salves, when you need clarities. So I think this is a good position for the speed scroll, in my opinion. Deathnote.
One point, I hardly disagree because, 10 seconds, it's in a fast-paced RTS game like Warcraft 3, it's a lot of time. Like, 7 seconds should be way enough to position yourself in a fight or something. I don't think that you need 10 seconds, and I don't think that they pop the speed scroll and they think 1, 2, or now I can run over to the other side of the map and then I can creep something. I don't agree there, and I don't think it's also destroying their kind of timings or feelings for the game like Rod of Necromancy did, because Rod of Necromancy, you really had the creep routes going by the Rod timing when it's again available, the cooldown. You never see an orc just go pop this speed scroll and run to this creep and then after one this creep, it's just a situational item, so it's completely different.
Yeah, speed scroll wouldn't affect creep routes, that's true. But in terms of, let's say you fight into a human, you get 3 kills, and then you pop the speed scroll and you back out. I would imagine it's deeply in your system to know how long that speed scroll lasts and how much you can get away with. So Spiral, I guess that would be your cue.
Yeah,
so you're telling that 7 seconds of maximum speed in the game, so fast as the level Frenzy Ghoul with level 3 DK Aura, is not enough for 7 seconds to escape?
Yeah, it's still very strong, but if it's too strong, it's not the point that it wouldn't be good enough with 7 seconds. It's the point that it messes with players. Like, imagine if Coil suddenly had 2 more second cooldown. Imagine how annoying that would be.
Yeah, but that's completely different.
Yeah, it's a different example, but it messes with your ingrained feeling of the game.
That's I don't get that argument, because it doesn't make any sense to me. Because 7 seconds or 10 seconds should be completely uninteresting for the orc, because it pops him, he pops the speed scroll and just runs away. I mean,
but if you're saying that it's irrelevant, then why does it need a nerf that way?
Yeah, because
if it doesn't make a difference anyways.
He gets away from the army, but not that far away that he's on the other side of the map and creeping all the camps already. I mean, that's the point.
Not true either.
All right, but if you're saying it's too strong the way it is there, I mean, this is definitely going to mess with org players.
So you're saying
feelings about the game.
Yeah, but you're saying then it messes with the orcs' feelings about the game in that way that they cannot creep the camp on the other side?
What?
No, that's not... XlorD, you're hanging up too much on that point. If he's using the speed scroll and running to the red camp, you can run after him. Like, the speed scroll is going to run out and the Kodo's lagging behind and you got the aura. Like, if you think speed scroll is too strong, then isn't just the gold cost only the safer way to nerf it?
Definitely not.
All right, we disagree.
Yeah, agreed.
What about Deathnote? What's your opinion, Deathnote?
If it's even fine 50 seconds, just nerf Headhunters. Because I don't know, like, orcs play with so long with the speed scroll. I think orcs is already like sold a lot of gold in items. For example, be humans, when we played like against orcs in Blade Master meta, they lost a lot of gold just of healing. After every creep, you need like you buy healing slave, and just use it. So you're gonna even like 60 supply or have 50 supply, because like he lost like 70 or 800 gold, I mean, just for healing. So I agree even like with 50 gold of speed scroll, but just some stupid nerfs like Fortificate upgrade or for them, or Headhunters buff also.
Yeah,
That's not the answer I wanted to hear.
Headhunters, I guess, something we get into later, not part of these patch notes though. All right, we seem to have differing views on this one. Which I guess brings us to the next point. Serpent Wards. Once again, we start with Spiral being our orc player.
Yeah, it's basically only affecting the orc versus Nilf matchup, which is also the purpose, I assume. Yeah, if you try to think about how would you nerf orc a bit right now, as they seem to do really well against Nilf in certain situations due to the Serpent Wards. I'm not sure, like, XP-wise, like the first variation was much harder, right? It was like 42 at level 2 Serpent Wards. That was insane. I was like thinking...
Yeah, that was just a typo. They made a mistake.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if it's the right approach to nerf Serpent Wards. I definitely feel like they could be nerfed, but I'm not sure if it's the right approach. Like other ideas would maybe be to increase their mana cost by a very small margin, or decrease their damage by a very small margin. Like it's one possible way. I'm not sure yet. Like it's hard to tell by just like viewing the patch note and saying, yeah, this is right. This is. But it's definitely targeted at the right unit. Like because I'm not sure what else you could nerf that address this and only this issue that we currently have in the Orc versus Night Elf matchup meta.
Yeah. XlorD, do you have a stance on this, or?
I think as an elf, I would rather like to see less damage or a higher mana cost instead of more XP, I guess, because I think also the Serpent Wards don't get auto-attacked by the units. They are always attacking the different units. Am I correct?
Yes. You have to target them manually with archers.
Yeah, I think damage reduction or mana cost increase significantly would be better than that increase of an XP.
Not significantly, because that's the issue again. Like, we need them. It's not like, we also need them. Like, you can't nerf them to the ground again, because then you've got the matchup shifted right away into the other direction.
Yeah, I agree.
We need them, but they need to be slightly nerfed somehow. Yeah.
Deathnote, how do you feel about Serpent Wards?
I don't play against like orcs with Serpent Wards, so just sometimes watching matchup like orc against night elves. Currently, like orcs do very well against night elves, so I don't know. Like I think this nerf is not too big with experience. I think it's fine because like level 3 Serpent Wards, it's level 1 water elemental for experience. It's equal. So I think it's fine.
Yeah, I also think Serpent Wards are a good thing to target for a little bit of a nerf. We all know how that level 3 Shadowhunter push, how strong that is. 50 supply, Orc, maybe a heal scroll, level 3 Shadow, go across the map, push the Night of Expansion, and then oftentimes easily counter-expand on the other side. Serpent Wards so strong right there. So strong that Night Elves can't even walk in because the hunts just get destroyed right away. I'm a little worried with the experience because this could add up quickly over time. And ultimates on Keeper and Alchemist are crazy. Especially in this matchup, Tranquility is really good, and Transmute is absolutely bonkers. So that's what kind of worries me, that level 6 will be acquired too quickly, and level 6 can very quickly be a game breaker. What I would, I think, prefer to see on Serpent Wards is keep their damage high, as it is, because I think it's kind of interesting to have summons that have really high damage, but they can't move. But give them less HP. At the moment, level 2 Serpent Wards, and only really level 2 Serpent Wards are a problem. Level 1 Serpent Wards and level 3 Serpent Wards are fine, but level 2 Serpent Wards seem to be a little too strong. So if we decrease the HP from 165 to 150, I think is the change that I would prefer to see. Although this might also be good. Gives Orc a little bit more, forces them to think a little bit harder of where they place them, when at the moment it seems like they can just spam Serpent Wards and it doesn't matter if they die. So this could also be a good nerf, but I am a little bit worried about what that might mean for Night Elf ultimates. So less HP, I personally would prefer, but I'm still absolutely fine with this change.
Yeah, I don't think it's over the top, but yeah, it's hard to say right now, like how it would affect it in reality. Will the XP gain be too much? Would it be better to decrease the damage or the HP? I kind of like the HP decrease as well. I feel like that would be a good change, but yeah.
All right, that's it with the Orcs. We didn't have much for them. We talked about the Panda already, which, as we all know, is pretty much a Night Elf buff. But one that we think mostly is there in the right place. So now we go into items, and there we have auras all getting nerfed, all of them. And item sell value being increased from 50% to 65%. That, for example, means a Town Portal Scroll sells for 211 gold now instead of 175 as it used to be. And Town Portal Scroll, for that reason, also decreased in cost. So, who wants to go first about the items?
I can. I think all items change. What did Blizzard is like a best after like that happens in 130 patch in Warcraft 3, because I really almost dislike all the nerfs like or buffs, some units, some like everything. But I like that nerf, like they big mana, they remove like crystal ball from very like big red spots. I like to like even nerf lightning shield, but still lightning shield it's very OP against human. For example, when we play in human mirror, if some like bad human is got like lightning shield, he can win you. I'm very angry with that because he just like run into your base like monkey, summon water elemental, use lightning shield, and you can lose game against like human who like just like 3 like heads below than you. So this item should be removed from the game, or removed from camps which you can creep in like early game. As for example, Northern Isles, it's Murlocs.
Okay, so Lightning Shield, kind of something you are missing. But how are you feeling about the auras being nerfed and the sell price being increased?
I think all our like auras will nerf is. I think it's good. Now it's like they nerf for 25%, but sell price maybe it's too big. Maybe like 60 is enough.
All right, XlorD, what do you think?
Yeah, all good changes of the auras. Pretty good. I would keep that. And also the sell value, I would keep it like it is now, the 65%. I think it's okay.
All right,
Yeah.
Spiral.
I also am a fan of these item changes. I feel like everything that reduces the item luck in the game is very welcome, and nerfing the auras by a good margin is definitely a nice start. Also, increasing the item sell value is good, but I also feel like 65% is maybe a little much. I would prefer to start with 60% and then just see how it feels for a while, and if we still feel like finding an aura compared to a ring plus 5 is still like amazingly big of a change, and I definitely want that little bit more of gold, and we can still touch that in a further patch. But it's a good start for sure, and either way I welcome these changes.
All right, I think pretty much everyone feels that the aura change is good, and also the item sell increase is good. Just what exactly is the right number is unclear. XlorD says 65 is proper, and I would also prefer to see 60% sell value instead of 65. There's a few examples I can give. So Ring of Protection +4, we see that out by expansion creeps, for example. At the moment, only gives 150 gold. With 65%, it would be 195 gold. Which I think is pretty high. With 60%, it would be 180 gold. If we move up in value, a Wand of Mana Stealing would give 260 gold on 65%. On 60%, only 240. Again, there I personally would think 60% is more appropriate. And it gets, of course, always higher the higher you go. A Book of the Dead on 65% gives 292 gold. So that's quite a lot already. And if you go to the highest items, a Cloak of Flames on 65 gold would give you 65%, would give you 325 gold. So it's a pretty big amount. I would also prefer to see it a little bit smaller at 60%. But perhaps the most important item that there is to sell is the Town Portal Scroll, because that has big balance implications. Being able to sell the Town Portal is only doable for very few strategies. That is most notably Blade Master Opening and Undead Fast Expansion with either CryptLord or DK or something like that. And the moment it is currently utilized is TP selling for 325 gold. I got the calculator open. At 65% would be 211 gold. I think that's too much for a TP, both for Blade Master openings and for Undead expansion, fast expansion. I think that's too much. So I think one of two things has to happen. Either sell value has to be decreased to 60%, or Town Portal Scroll has to be made even cheaper. because I think getting 211 gold right at the beginning is way too much. That's my view. Deathnote, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, as I said, it's 60%, I think. I was said before. And if I talk about items, I think Crystal Ball should be removed from the game, or made it some like attributes like plus 50 mana, for example, or just like plus 3 intelligent, or as I said before, like plus 3 main attribute. So if Lich is got that, it's plus 3 intelligent. If Decay, like it's plus 3 strange. So it's like gives something, because now, for example, you play Human Mirror, you get like Crystal Ball, another human get class plus 9. So it's so very hard to fight because his Archmage got something, but your Crystal Ball is totally useless. I think it should be removed, or just give anything like plus 1 stats maybe from like all of them.
All right. XlorD, any thoughts on TP selling early, or?
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you would lower the cost of the TP to 300 now, it would be also pushing maybe some laming strategies as well. Hard to say. So, I mean, I guess the easiest way would be to reduce the selling value to 60% probably, but it's not that big of a deal as well. So,
all right, Spiral.
Yeah, I also agree. I feel like decreasing the selling value to 60% feels like the more rounded, safe, like the more well-rounded, safe approach. And yeah, I also agree that like reducing the town portal cost even further, it's hard to tell like how it affects the game. Like I just did the calculation. So for 60%, then you would get 195 gold for the town portal, right? As
What?
it stands right now.
I believe you.
At the moment, it's 211. Or
Yeah,
no.
and for 60% it would be 195, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like this would be like a bit more balanced, and also like in the new, hopefully in the new way that Blizzard will take, that we adjust things by small changes and not like huge changes. I feel like 60% for the item sell value would cover that in a decent way.
All right, and that's pretty much all of it for the patch note. There was also a bug fix, which fixed the abuse you could do to scout gold mines, which is also a big deal. So the fact that they introduced that is, of course, very good. So we're done with all the preliminary patch notes on the PTR, which leaves us with the last section, which is which changes do you think were not included that should be included? And we're going to start with Deathnote.
I really wanted to say like Undead expansion nerf. I wanted to see like Headhunters nerf. I wanted to see like Banshee possession nerf. It's plus remove Lightning Shield from the game, and remove Crystal Ball, or add to Crystal Ball some like attributes. I think that's all.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, we discuss again, or
Yeah, you can speak against it if you want, or just say what you think.
like I'm not sure. Like Banshee possession, I know it pretty much hard counters knights, but you do have a few stuffs. You have in theory mortar teams. You have bolt, so you do have a few tools to deal with that. I'm not sure that this is like the biggest issue right now.
No, it's not one like that. It's Toby. It's like Undead just like went to into your mortars, kill all of them, and after possession your knights. Of course, you can like stuff like you buy 3 stuffs, you stuff like 3 knights which Undead try to possession, but after that you lost like heroes because you can stuff them.
Yeah, and also like not having 12 supply in the fight is pretty huge actually, right? Or let's say 12.
Yes.
8 or 4. Yeah.
It's very hard to deal. You make like unit, you spend 8 upgrades because you make like now you make Thundering Blades, but not will soon not. You make like Animal Overtrain, you make 3/3 Knights, and it was bestilled for like 2 supply unit with like who
Right.
cost like 130 gold. It's what the hell is that?
But do you have an idea how to nerf it? Like, I wouldn't really know how to nerf it right now.
No, I don't know. Like even like maybe I really don't know. Like maybe bunches like will be not still low like per units. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
I've
mean,
also heard that a lot from humans, but I always go by pro tournament games, and Banshee possession like almost never matters. But there's a pretty easy way to nerf that gradually as well, and that is just increase the damage that Banshees take when they're possessing. At the moment, they take plus 66% damage, and you could increase that to like plus 80 damage or something, by a little bit. But I don't really think it's a big issue. And I would disagree, as I did earlier, with the fast expansion nerf. With the expansion nerf. Like, Undead's expanding on tier 2, on tier 3 is really hard. The tier 1 expansion can be overwhelming, but only really with XlorD. So I think if we nerf XlorD, we deal with the problem.
But-
if we nerf Undead expansion, I think we take too many possibilities away.
I have
But-
one specific issue with that, but I can come to that in a second. Like for the item changes, I feel like we addressed that hopefully with this patch, that the sell value gets up, and I don't feel like we should exclude any more items right now, like the crystal orb. It's also an interesting item, so I kind of like it. Yeah, regarding the Wind of Lightning shields, this might actually be one of those that are very imbalanced, and it has been removed in the past from certain maps, so I could be fine with that. Regarding the fast expansion for Undead, I'm a bit like mixed. I have mixed feelings about that because, in general, I also feel like it gets up a bit too easily. And the one issue I have right now that at least are my observations, like for the top level Orc against Undead, to me at least it seems like Blade Master or Farsia can't deal that well with DK, not that great on the highest level. And Blade Master can't deal that well against the XlorD fast expansion, because because pretty much the only viable style with Blade Master against XlorD, at least from what I saw, is the Hitman style, with the very fast tier 3 tech into tiny expand and try to be very dominant on the map, try to creep a lot, prevent the UD from creeping. But lately it seems that the Undeads shifted towards very heavy tier 2 investment push on the Orc expansion. Not even teching so fast, but really breaking supply early with lots of fiends, some banshees and statues. And this strategy doesn't get nerfed at all by the XlorD changes. And yeah, I'm a bit worried for the top level because I'm not sure how Orcs can reliably deal with these issues, like Farsight not really being able to beat DK, or not that great, at least from what I saw in the last few weeks, and Blade Master not being able to deal that well with the XlorD.
Isn't the Impale nerf significant there, though?
The issue is that because the expansion gets up pretty smoothly for the Undead usually, they will still have that very overwhelming army, like 65 to 70 supply very, very early, with especially 1 or 2 banshees that are very strong against the Blade Master, and the Orc will not have that huge of an army at that time. Like, I saw a few games and it pretty much always went the same way, that the Orc lost pretty hard because the masses were just overwhelming at that time. But yeah, I might be wrong with it. I'm not sure.
And I think I forgot about like to fix even random, because I think random should be for yourself. It's just like if you like play random, of course it's will as after the like loading screen, it should be showing like enemy race. It's good for undead. It's like good for human, because like Fly, for example, is brought after like games with Infe that you just like against human, like you need to play Farseer, Against Night Elf, it's need to play Blade Master, like against or Undead. It's same, like it's need to even choose a hero before like even you scout it, so it's a big random. And when you play like even in ladder, for example, guys playing random against Night Elf, like you need to make fast expansion, not fast expansion. It's like straight expansion as first camp. But how you know he's random? It's like a big luck of the game.
Yeah, I've definitely felt similar to you there as well. It's kind of dumb that, it's an RTS game and there's certain builds that are good and certain that are not good. And then you're forced into a bad build because the other guy doesn't tell you his race.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, random players keep making the argument, yeah, whatever, but I have to learn 4 races with like 12 different matchups or whatever. So I see your point, but I don't think that's something Blizzard's ever going to do, to be honest.
Yeah, and also it's like a very niche problem. Like there's very few players in the scene that often go for random. Like it's pretty much only Infi and maybe Starbuck. I'm not sure if there's any other player to play random very regularly.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
All right, XlorD or let's go with XlorD. What are you missing in these patch notes? What do you think should be in these patch notes?
Well, first of all, to the Banshees, the possession, I don't see there also a problem, because it's also maybe the last thing that Undead can do against human, basically, because gyros kill destroyers, kill Wyrms, so you have no air superiority or whatever, how it's called. So you have no chance with air. So the only one chance is basically to get somehow rid of the knights. So, and that's basically with Banshees the last possibility, because you don't have any ground army which does a lot of magic damage. To the point of Undead expansion being too strong and maybe too cheap or something, I highly disagree. We talked about it already in the beginning, that you have to take different things also in consideration. You cannot build instantly there a ziggurat. You have to buy a skull. You cannot TP there. You cannot build acolytes from the haunted gold mine, etc., etc. So I don't see there a nerf being correct in this place. And what Spyro said against the what he said is, if you play Blade Master, you lose automatically kind of against XlorD, or it's really hard to play against. But I mean, you cannot go as an orc straight to tier 3, buy a tiny greater hall, invest 600 gold, and then have three units, 3 heroes, and maybe 2 walkers, and then to expect to have a chance against an all-in tier 2 push. I mean, that's completely stupid to think that this kind of strategy can work. I mean, so they have to also to adjust then to the Undead. They have to scout, is he tagging to tier 3, or maybe I should make some I don't know, walkers and try tier 2 expansion with maybe a tower against the beetles and so on. So I don't think there's no need for a nerf of the Undead expansion. Now to the points which I would like also to see be maybe worked on is definitely the TC aura being nerfed in the TC aura in regards of the movement speed, so that they adjust this aura also or align it with the DK movement speed bonus. And we talked about the speed scroll definitely, and that's the main part from my side today. Maybe also a little bit of nerf of the hex, because now it's from, I think, on units 15 seconds, 30 seconds, and 45 seconds, which is pretty huge already on level 1, 15 seconds. And you're basically a critter which cannot run away or something, because it's really, really slow. And it's a lot of duration, so I would suggest to reduce at least the level 1 hex to maybe 11 or 12 seconds would be sufficient, I think. And I also would like to see a Headhunter nerf, but I don't think that Blizzard would touch them. But I feel like they're too efficient, too strong, especially on tier 3. They're probably the best ranged unit in the game right now compared to archers, fiends, and rifles, and super cheap as well, and have good synergies with the rest of the orc army, in my opinion, especially with Stomp and so on. So yeah, it's hard to say against human. Yeah, I hope they just make maybe a few changes, that the DK standard is also maybe a little more viable instead of nerfing DK standard into the ground, you know. And I think all in all, the meta is, or the game is pretty much in a decent state now, I have to say. So a few adjustments, we already talked about them, and then we can wait another few months, maybe 2 to 3 months, and see how it goes. But I wouldn't take too big of a balance change steps here. Let's see then.
Spiral, anything you want to disagree with XlorD, or just your own suggestions?
Yeah, we'll just go through race by race. Like for Orc, I do agree that headhunters are very cheap right now and provide a lot of utility for that. Like they're pretty much great at every stage of the game right now. I wouldn't mind like a minor nerf on them, like increase their gold by maybe 5 or maybe 5. Just like let's start slowly if we change them and see how it does. For human, I don't have too much issues with human. I feel like Siphon Mana is a bit of a very strong spell, and it's I feel like they could decrease the mana drain rate by a bit, maybe for at least level 2. I'm not sure, like level 1 is maybe fine. Maybe also level 1 by a bit, because mana is pretty much the bread and butter of the game, and it's not cool. Like you like heroes that are melee, they really don't have a lot of options against the Blood Mage then. For Night Elf, I also don't have too much issues with Night Elf, since I do feel that they are not in the greatest of spots right now. There's not really like anything I feel like should necessarily be addressed. Orb stacking feels a bit stupid, but it's one of their core strengths right now, and don't think we should touch that right now. For Undead, I feel like the fast expansion, as I stated, is a bit too strong or too cheap. Even though Daniel said that you can't TP and acolytes have to move there from the main, but it's not too easy to harass the expansion, and also like most expansions they cost around 400 gold. How much is the UD expansion right now? 205?
255, I think.
225 for the Haunted, 225 for the Necro.
I feel like it's like if you buy a house and you have to pay back some of the money. Like, do you prefer to do it like all in 1 year or like over several years? Like, the strength is also a bit that the expansion itself is pretty cheap, and you can just spend the money more. How is it called? I don't know. Gradually over a longer amount of time, instead of like bam 400 gold gone, like for the Orc expansion, let's say. I would like a tiny nerf on the Undead expansion in some way. I'm not sure in which one.
It's not tiny nerf. I think it's need to back before like 30 patch that you can buy. You can't buy Sacrificial Skull without Graveyard. That's all.
Okay, maybe then also go back to tanks and towers again. Increase the armor.
I feel like that would be too much of a nerf, because that is a huge nerf if you need a Graveyard again for it all. But like a tiny nerf, I'm not sure.
But no, look at some Europe tournaments. It's like 5 Undeads in, for example, in DreamHack compared to 8 players in every tournament.
And how
like,
many
Undead,
is it in
Undead,
Asia,
Undead,
Deathnote?
Undead.
How many do we have in Asia?
In Asia, it's 1-0 who playing like 3 hours in 1 week, and like same like with Vortex, like who playing like 3 hours in like 1 month. and it's enough to Undead to like have good results. That's all.
So all the undeads are playing
You know, like
no
Craft
time at
before
all, and everyone
130
else is
patch,
practicing.
like Craft have before 130 patch like 1,700 MMR. So every like player who like if you look Undead players like look Cruncher for example stream name like Undead is like slightly improved like for 1 week. Like every Undead is have like has plus 300 plus 400 MMR after like XlorD patch.
Yes, the Cryptlord was too strong, and that's
It's
why it's getting
Undead
nerfed.
expansion. It's I told it's not even about XlorD. It's about Undead expansion. You can make also expansion with first leech even. Why not?
Yeah, you can make that, but it's not probably gonna work out too well
Why? Why?
because it's a lot weaker of a hero, unlike the Cryptlord.
No. What the hell? Like you know, you can use like 8 Noahs in 1 minute, and you have still full mana. You just kill like farming human. Why not? You can play first Dreadlord. Why not? You can play like every hero which you want with fast expansion. You even like can play first this night. Like Sock is playing like first this night with fast expansion and still beat humans. He also like beat Todd with first this night with fast expansion.
Yeah, but you
As
know those.
Krabsy said in interview that you can beat human with every expansion, and he beat like every hero of humans with every hero.
And on ladder that has certainly happened, but I don't think that's the real testing ground. And we've only seen really how strong the Cryptlord expansion is. I've seen a lot of Lich first expansion failing. I've seen a ton of Dreadlord first expansion failing because he runs out of mana and then you sort of die. I think we should first nerf the Cryptlord and then see where we land, but that's just my opinion. Sorry, I think, Spiral, we interrupted you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so if a nerf, then also just a tiny nerf. As I said, I don't feel like it should be like completely gone once more, but yeah, I would propose a tiny nerf. And then the other unit that I have a bit of an issue with is the statue. Like a few weeks ago, I've out of curiosity, I've checked like the stats of the statue, and I was pretty amazed. They start with 400 out of 600 mana, and then I compared it with like Banshee, I believe, with who on Initiate had less than 50% of its base mana pool. And also the mana regeneration is very good actually. It's better than from the Banshee. And yeah, I feel like the statues, they are very necessary for Undead, and it's you can't nerf them to the ground. It would be stupid because then UD would be terrible. But I don't like the fact that it seems that UD you can just creep the whole map without taking any damage. Really, I feel like you can pretty much creep whatever spot, and after the spot you're pretty much 90% HP on everything, and I don't like that. And yeah, with that, obviously, I don't like the sustain in general from the statues. I feel like there might be a little nerf needed on what they provide on HP and or mana wise. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I certainly agree with statues that they are very strong. In my opinion, statue is the strongest unit in the game, but it is such a staple in the Undead army. Like, if you nerf statues, you nerf Undead in every matchup. It's not going to be matchup specific, like against human, like we want it to be. It's going to nerf everything, everywhere. And I know what you mean, especially about creeping. I think a big reason why Undead is so popular for so many players is because it's so easy to creep. Out of creeping, Undead has the easiest job by far, and Orc has the hardest. But it's such an integral part of the race. If you nerf statues, like it's gonna make Undead so much weaker everywhere. So I think this would be a very, very dangerous unit to touch.
Remo, but you think like 3 mana a second in starter, it's like
that's actually not correct. It's 2 mana per second. The math on that is wrong.
No, it's a bit not correct. How much now?
It is 2 mana per second. Because the statue actually regenerates once every 1.5 seconds, not every second.
And Brilliant Aura level 3, it's 2 mana a second. So one starter is Brilliant Aura, yeah? And 10 priests. It's like together, like level 5 Archmage with level 3 Brilliant Aura and 10 priests together.
Yeah, I know, but you're again isolating aspects and picking them up and saying that is so imbalanced. But you can't just take one unit and show the stats and say this is a problem. You have to look at it in context and look at the meta and look at how all the matchups work. And if you nerf statues, it's gonna have a ripple effect and it's gonna make all of Undead much worse.
Yeah, and we will see just like 3 Undeads, not 5 in DreamHack finals, right?
And we will see 0 in Asia and 0 in America.
In America, it's not so many players playing, and as I said, in Asia, like it's 1-0 who have like a normal job, and he's even not like full-time player as another like Focus, like he playing in 3 accounts, like 12 hours a day, and 1-0 who play like 3 hours a week and beat him.
Seems like you have a lot of excuses prepared to back up your specific stats, Deathnote, but okay, I grant you that. Other than that, Spiral, anything else you are missing?
No, that was it pretty much. Like, aside of that, I'm also pretty happy with the current situation of the balance and also like the patch notes that Blizzard has in store for us right now. I definitely feel like it's a good step in the right direction, and I hope that we get more of these on a regular basis. So as I mentioned before, that we can adjust things slightly and just more regularly.
All right, that leaves me with the last suggestions, which might be missing. So in general, I'm in favor of pretty much all of these changes. I think these are all pretty good. Serpent wards, maybe I would like to see HP decrease instead. And towers repair might be fine, but I'm a little bit worried that this could lead to tower push again, so I'm a little worried here. Wouldn't mind seeing this weaker or removed. But in general, I really like pretty much all of it. So I think this is going to be a good patch. Things that I am missing is... I think balance on items has come a long way, but I think one item drop in particular is a big problem. Wand of Illusion drop table, I think is really imbalanced. Replenishment Potion is alright. Lightning Shield is for the most part alright, although Deathnote has a point against human. With Militia, it can be a problem, but on the top level in the games that I see with pro players, it hardly ever matters. Attacking the militia. But sentry wards are super strong in my opinion, too strong, and so are Wand of Illusion. So I think Wand of Illusion should be reduced to only 2 charges instead of 3, and I think sentry wards should have only 1000 vision range instead of 1600, and also I think sentry wards should give experience when you kill them. So you actually get something for it. So you don't just buy a dust and destroy the sentry ward and don't get anything for it. So I think sentry wards should give 40 experience and the vision range should be reduced. And lastly, I think we should add new maps to the BattleNet pool. Tidehunters and Autumn Leaves have been introduced now to ESL and to WGL. I think it should also be part of official Warcraft, and we can just add those two, Tidehunters and Autumn Leaves, and remove Brightwater Oasis and Nomad Isles or Swamp Temple, whatever. Those maps aren't played anyways. I know that this is also a technical problem for WGL to include those maps in netties if it's not part of Warcraft 3, the base game. So I think that would be pretty important to add in as well. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Your last words, ladies and gentlemen. Shout outs to the sponsors and viewers. Your goodbye messages. Spiral, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, you brought up some really good points there in the end. Wand of Illusion is definitely a very abusive item. And like for creep pulling, and I definitely would like to have it on 2 charges. And also it can lead to huge fight swings, like there's certain matchups that just can't deal very well with illusions. And it's a huge swing, and yeah, I would also love to see 2 charges on them. For the ward part, I kind of agree as well, like reducing the range would be a great start. About the XP stuff, I'm not sure, but yeah, reducing the vision would be great. Yeah, and for shoutouts and stuff, shout out to all my sponsors, Kappa. Yeah, I don't know. just to the boys that I'm in contact with. They know who they are. Yeah, I very rarely stream. Like the last time is probably months ago, but sometimes I stream under twitch.tv Spyro92. Maybe you can catch me there once or twice. And yeah, aside of that, it was fun to take part in this. And yeah, maybe another time soon.
All right, thank you. Deathnote.
I'm like mostly agree with Spyro, like happy even with patches because like Blizzard is doing some job with balances. Of course, not as they said before that like patch like will come soon in every 3 months, but it's still better than nothing. So I streaming almost every day and follow the Deathnote channel so we can join to me and like we love Warcraft 3. That's all.
All right, I like that. XlorD.
Yeah, I just hope that Blizzard will watch this video or did watch it right now. So it was not. So it had a purpose. I mean, that's my hope, and that they, think carefully about the balance changes they make, because a lot of people also make a living out of it. So just to be careful what they do with the game.
All right. And I thank you all very much for joining us here. This was a long one, dude. This was like 3 hours. We talked a lot about balance. I really appreciate that you guys were here. Thank you, Deathnote. Thank you, XlorD. Thank you, Spiral. Thank you also, Starshaped, who was with us earlier. I don't know if there's going to be another iteration of this patch before it goes live, or if this is going to be changed one more time and then it's going to hit us live. But yeah, it's supposed to be coming out this month. I think somewhere around the middle of this month. So I'm pretty excited. I think that's pretty cool. And yeah, guys, have a good night and talk to you soon.
Yeah,
See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. And that is the end of the show here today for the Balance Roundtable. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I have no idea how many people were watching or what was going on in chat, because I was getting triggered by some things and I had to close the chat. I wasn't able to thank our supporters today because I thought it would really disrupt the discussion if I said thanks to the subs and stuff like that. But do know that you're very appreciated, all the supporters out there. Thank you for all the subs. Thank you for all the donos. And yeah, you can, if you missed some of this video, you're going to be able to catch it on YouTube. I'm probably going to upload it tomorrow and can catch up on it there or here in the Twitch VOD. That's pretty much it for me. We're going to end this stream in a moment, but we are not done with the Warcraft broadcast today because Carson is going to start Theorycraft in only 1 hour from now. Theorycraft at 10 p.m. CEST. Gonna be talking about Lynn's approach to Farseer headhunters, I believe. Of course, our schedule you can always find on backtowarcraft.com. As you can see, 3 different shows today. We're going to continue tomorrow with the WGL March Pro Qualifier, and we're going to have our celebration stream of the 100,000 follower celebrations. We're going to have some show matches. We're going to have some fun mini games and a few surprises in there as well. So tomorrow, don't forget to check that out at 7 p.m. And on Saturday and Sunday, WGL and Dust League also continue. And that is it. Thank you all very much for tuning in. Carson is going to be back here in 1 hour. So now you have some time to make dinner and be perfectly ready for our next stream. And hopefully I will also see you again tomorrow for WGL and the 100,000 celebration. And that is it. Boys, I'm out. I wish you a good one, and I'll talk to you soon.